Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Factions of Freedom. I'm your host, Noisera, Freedom Faction, whichever one you prefer, and I have titled this episode Dystopian Daze, Toxic Healthcare, and Inclusive Capitalism. Yeah, on this pre-season finale, we essentially talk about the communist infiltration, the damage that COVID-19 has brought, and how America is over here picking up the pieces, trying to make sense of what just happened. Yeah, infiltration, insurrection, agitation, you name it, we discover it and discuss it in this episode. Melinda Gates coming out saying that she's incredibly disappointed that Americans are getting the COVID-19 vaccine, as well as a list of all the Communist Party members from China being leaked worldwide. You also have Virginia GOP candidates calling for Trump to declare martial law. Whoa. As we end 2020, running up on 2021, the world is increasingly crazy. And this is, like I said before, the pre-season finale. We're running out of episodes and days to do the work for you guys. We got to take a break. How crazy, right? But don't worry, last quick update. If you didn't listen to the Seismic Social Shift minicast we did earlier this week, we broke down Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15 of the Constitution, the power to call forth the militia. You missed out. Actually, you legitimately did miss out. Instagram didn't let me get both segments in, so it's only 1 hour. I would definitely recommend you guys listen to it. Last thing, if you guys want to support this operation, you want to be keyed in and involved in what's happening, join our patreon.com/Freedom Faction exclusive membership program. Join us, because we're going to be doing a lot more things coming up here in the future, and I would definitely hope that you guys support us, seeing 2020 as our resume. And with that being said, let's start the show. Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Factions of Freedom. I'm your host, Noisera, Freedom Faction, whichever one you prefer, and this is show number 1042, season 10, episode 42. And just like that, we have ran up on the end of the year, gang. Christmas is next week. I should just go ahead and tell you that this is this is going to be the formal final episode of the podcast. I maybe should have done like a more sophisticated closeout. This is going to be the more formal, informational final episode. I guess the season finale, I guess that's what they call it. The season finale will be next week. You're going to get it a day ahead because, well, Christmas Eve and Christmas is next week. And so I won't be here with you guys. And then the week after that is New Year's. And so I need to take a break so that we're not all fired up like this. As always. You gotta give me a second. You might hear it throughout later on in the show. The nutraceuticals and the pre-workout hitting me. But what I'm trying to say, gang, is it. This is the end of 2020, and what a wild ride it's been, right? And what happened in 2020 is going to be felt for decades to come, that's for sure. But this was 2020. How wild was that? And that, we were able to spend some of this time together. And I don't mean like actually physically sitting down and having like a picnic and eating over at the park or, hanging out at a restaurant. They closed that, but being able to bond in this capacity. How crazy is that? Covering these things with the way that we do, understanding what is happening to society. How strange is all of this? People have lost their minds. Me too, including. I'm not immune to it. Neither are you. But people have lost their minds. People have collectively lost their minds. I was thinking about all the different things that I've done this year and I still have to take care of, and then I was thinking about things and how ultimately, coronavirus hit and it forced all of us to kind of wake up in a completely different way. I think before coronavirus, a lot of people were just kind of passive and, just very, very, very laxed about stuff. But, since COVID hit, a lot of things have changed. That's for sure. I think a lot of people had, again, like I said the other day, had themselves revealed to themselves. A lot of the lessons that we learned and that we were exposed to because of coronavirus has, again, forced a lot of people to change in numerous ways. And it's something you can't take back. And I would hope that as you've changed, you've grown. I would truly hope so. I would hope that there is still some beauty, some kind of positivity, some kind of productivity, something good that comes from all the turmoil that you felt this year, because you're not alone. And as I say all the time, you have to experience this adversity in order to grow through it, because these things aren't happening to you. They're happening for you. For you. It allows you to, again, reassess the situation, see what your thought process is, and see if you really are as deeply affected by these things as you perceive. A lot of mind control this year, a lot of brainwashing, and it's not done. Clearly we're going to talk about that more in this episode, but sticking to the intro, you've got to understand that things are different and they're not going to be going back to normal for a while or ever, whatever we decide or whatever we think normal might be. You see. Sorry about that. Lots of Call of Duties lately, which is one of the things I had wanted to talk about, and then transition into talking about where revolutions are planned and, again, just how things are changing. There have been a lot of Call of Duties lately. Call of or Call to duties lately for me. And again, as I told you guys earlier this week, whenever we were covering Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15, the power to call forth the militia of the Constitution, a lot of Call of Duties lately. And we'll get into that later on in the episode, here shortly. But I'm telling you guys this because things are a-changing. Like that song says, things are changing. And there's also going to be a revival. There's going to be, again, that seismic socio-cultural political shift that's taking place. If you didn't listen to the minicast we did earlier this week, I would definitely recommend you do so. Because things are changing and you have to change along with them. You have to rediscover and or just discover who you really are. Who you truly are. What you can bring to the table. But see, that's the thing. Speaking about tables, transitioning into the next topic, the intro topic, where are revolutions planned? On tables, right? At bars, restaurants, schools, churches, schools, things like that, right? I know I just said schools twice, but schools, a third time. That's where they're planned. And what did they shut down? The churches, the schools, the bars, but you can still go to the liquor store, you can still go to the strip club, and you can still wait in a bread line, 6 feet apart, social distance. But as far as engaging in normal human behavior where you're able to congregate in a singular area and discuss things that upset you and hopefully go through some type of de-stressing process, nope, they don't want that. No, what they want is for you to feel isolated, alone, scared. They want you to think that not everybody else is having these thoughts. That you are alone, that you are truly socially isolated. Well, I'll tell you this, my friends, that's not the case. And even as they purge information on these censored platforms, people will still find ways to the truth, or at least the truth will trickle out, and it will leave those breadcrumbs, that trail, for other people to follow. And my friends, at 42 episodes and 10 seasons in, you can believe we've left quite a trail. Quite a trail. I'll say this and start getting into the show. There is a massive difference between the Instagram lives and the main transmission. And we're probably going to be launching a third show here. Don't want to jinx us, but we're going to be doing a lot more work here in the next year. There's a massive difference between the Instagram lives, the show, and a lot of the other work that we do. The reason for this is, as I've said all the time since the inception of the podcast, that we diversify the information simply because you guys deserve it. Some people prefer video, some people prefer audio, some people like looking at the person that's giving them the information, some people like having access to the information themselves. Read it. Read what we put out there. Don't just hear my interpretations of it or my commentary, but there is a massive difference between what we do for the lives versus the show, because we're trying to get you guys to truly understand and comprehend how many different things are going on. And sometimes one format doesn't work, and so we have to try another. Hence why we've got to launch another show. We've got to start pulling people up. We've got to start getting the will and the voice of the people heard on our platforms. Because I'm telling you, there's a lot of stuff that I'm doing behind the scenes to where it needs to be amplified, but the current configuration, the format that we have, it's not that it's not suitable, it's what worked for us at the time. And like I said before, things are changing, and we must change with them. We've come a long way from looking at the paranormal and the supernatural, which we still do and will do. But this is where we're needed at the time. I told you this earlier before in the week, that just 5 years ago, I had released my music video, Back to the Ropes. And now we're doing volunteer work, Toys for Tots, helping run security, and all kinds of other crazy things that I really can't mention on the show yet. And that's life. And you have to embrace that, because it is going to be an interesting ride either way. And that's all I can advocate to you guys, is to go after it. No one's going to offer you your success. They'll give you a lot of lip, very little help. And what you have to do going forward is keep your integrity, keep your focus, keep your resolve, keep your mind. As I've said time and time again, what standards, what expectations, what morals are we going to bring forward into this new world order? The world is going through a change, and it is trying to destroy itself. But does that mean we have to as well? And with that being said, let's start the show. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning into this edition of Factions of Freedom, one of the final episodes of Season 10. What is it, like the pre-season finale? I'm not sure what that's called, but let's go ahead and start talking about dystopian days, the times, again, that we find ourselves in. You have a former Facebook or Fedbook fact checker revealing that social media is being used as a weapon to force compliance with global communism and medical Marxism. This is an article that comes from Patriot Rising. They put this up December 16th. And before I get into this, you already know what I'm going to talk about. Again, the very fact that we have created a show, a business, and a system and a network describing what we're about to get into, you already inherently understand this. But the fact that people are coming out saying, oh my God, this is a tool for compliance. That's the big thing. I was just thinking earlier this week, hey, where are all those fact checkers? Where is factcheck.org? Where are USA Today? Because they love to creep on the page. Where are they? Seems like a lot of the content we're putting out these days is factual. Let's get into this. It says a former Fedbook fact checker came out and revealed how, quote, fact checking really works. The details were published on LinkedIn by Jean-Pierre Gregoire. Facebook is rapidly censoring anyone who doesn't go along with the controlling guidelines. Facebook will only allow the information of COVID-19. It supports the narrative of shut down, mask up, separate, isolate, and vaccinate. Facebook's belligerent censorship of health freedom advocates, conservatives, and patriots is only just the beginning. Facebook is being weaponized to manipulate users into intellectual submission, forcing acceptance of left-wing policies, medical Marxism, and global communism via the Great Reset. Quote, I can't say this on Facebook, but I feel like it's important to say. I was a Facebook fact checker, and your conspiracy theories about Facebook are more true than you realize, wrote Gregoire, who worked as a third-party contractor on Appen, a Facebook fact-checking organization. The company is located in Canada and coordinates with a company in India to stifle the free speech of Americans. Oh, great. So foreigners are telling us what to say. Marvelous. Goes on to say that Facebook, Gregoire Gregore said that Mark Zuckerberg cannot directly censor anyone on the platform because Facebook is an open platform. Instead of censoring people outright, Facebook uses several third-party companies to, quote, fact-check. This is how Facebook censors its users legally and controls the narrative across the social media landscape. But the censorship is bigger than Mark Zuckerberg and his views. Facebook, like other big tech companies, controls a significant portion of the information that people see and read on a daily basis. Knowing this, special interests, governments, and those with political and business interests are constantly trying to influence the leaders of Facebook. If these special interests can restrict the flow of competing information and snuff out dissent on important topics, then they can successfully brainwash entire swaths of people into accepting plans and products and visions, paving the way for the social credit score system. Yet, you see, this is what we're up against. This is, again, why I'm having such a hard time trying to find a primary platform to migrate to. We've built a pretty marvelous structure over here on Instagram, haven't we, team? This is why I don't mess with Fedbook, even though Instagram owns it. You see, I think people like the gallery setting on Fedbook or on Instagram to where they're able to see the content and then click into it. Something about looking at links and then actually having to read the article itself. I don't think that's what people like. I think we have figured out a way to aesthetically please people with the information that we put out. And so we have to find another platform where that same level of aestheticism can be there, to where it's visually pleasing to people, but at the same time convenient. But that's me just talking about my own operation. Back to Fedbook being exactly what it should be, the Ministry of Truth or the Ministry of Misinformation. We'll get into more about that later on in the show when we talk about inclusive capitalism, as well as toxic healthcare. How the UN has created a site called Verified, where there's over 110,000 information volunteers. And I myself am an information volunteer. I take time out of my day to provide this information, to look for articles that help summarize the generality of the times that we are in. But you see, I'm not a verified information volunteer. I'm not a part of a Fedbook, Facebook, fact-checking organization. And so what they're basically telling you is that you're being propagandized to. We're going to propagandize you. You're not allowed to have your own thought. And if you are having a thought, you're allowed to have a thought within these reasons, within this type of guideline. Right? I'm always talking smack about it. How they wanted us to go through, or how we're going through an awakening process, but how with technology, it's through a censored platform. We're waking up through a filter. We're able to say woke statements in 140 characters. It's designed, again, to rob us of our individuality, pushing global communism and medical Marxism, the tyranny that we see facing us today. Thankfully, though, people are beginning to wake up. Thankfully, though, people are trying to fight back, because we're not the only ones that see this. Like I was saying before with COVID-19, the entire world has been woken up to the tyranny. And now, World Health Organization Chief Tedros Ghebreyesus could face genocide charges, not necessarily in relation to COVID, but some of his previous attachments. This is an article that comes from Nima Harris over there at News Bunch. They put this up December 14th, and it talks about how Director General of the World Health Organization is facing calls for prosecution over his alleged involvement in directing security forces in his Ethiopian homeland. Yeah, he was a part of terror squads out there just killing all kinds of people. And this is the person that led the charge with COVID-19, who was bought out by President Xi Jinping. So it's only after the COVID-19 pandemic that he's being brought up on the charges of his former role. It goes on to say that an American economist nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, David Steinman, who accused Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus of being one of the three officials in control of the Ethiopian security services from 2013 to 2015, according to a report by The Times. It goes on to say that Breitbart.com reports that Tedros was the country's health minister from 2005 to 2012 and its foreign minister until 2016, when his communist Tigray People's Liberation Front was the main member of the ruling coalition. Again, right there. There's the tie. That's why Tedros Ghebreyesus and President Xi Jinping of China were so tight. That's why Tedros ran cover for China and let this virus infect the world. because of the communist aspect. And it was only, again, after the whole pandemic got exposed, we'll get into that in the second segment. It's only after the pandemic got exposed that you saw those links come out. That, again, China bought off Tedros, and that, again, Tedros is a part of a terrorism squad. Going on, it says analysts reported, including American government officials, have listed the TPLF in the global terrorism database. It says that the Times says that Steinman, an economist and campaigner nominated for the Peace Prize last year, lodged the complaint at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. He alleged that Tedros was, quote, a crucial decision maker in relation to security services action that included killing, arbitrarily detaining, and torturing Ethiopians. The complaint to prosecutors at the ICC comes after General Birhanu Julia, Ethiopia's army chief of staff, called the last month for the World Health Organization leader to resign. He accused him of trying to procure weapons for the Tigray region where the Ethiopian army is fighting local forces. In his complaint, Steinman pointed out that a 2016 U.S. government report on human rights in Ethiopia found that, quote, civilian authorities at times did not maintain control over the security forces, and local police in rural areas and local militias sometimes acted independently. It's true. It'll happen. Steinman added that the U.S. report cited, quote, other documented crimes. He accused Tedros of being involved in the, quote, intimidation of opposition candidates and supporters, including, quote, arbitrary arrests and lengthy pretrial detention. According to the Times, the complaint also alleged that Tedros oversaw the, quote, killing and causing seriously bodily harm to members of the Amhara, Konzo, Oromo, and Somali tribes with the intent to destroy those tribes in whole or in part. Yeah, so this is the guy that helped quarterback what we're experiencing right now with the lockdowns, the social isolation, the detaining. Yeah, that's why he has a history of it. And that's why, again, you have President Xi Jinping of China saying, hey, we need to go by this. This is the angle we need to take. Tedros, tell them what we need to do. Tell them how the communists run their people. Yeah, so he's being brought up on charges. Thank God. And it won't be, the sad thing is I know a lot of this won't stick, but it's the fact that these people get exposed for the type of criminals that they are. Because when that happens, people are able to fight back. They see this stuff and they think, well, why are we listening to criminals? I'm not going to take the advice of a criminal. So, yeah, no, the charges might not stick, but it raises awareness about these criminals and sometimes how they need to be deposed. So while Tedros Ghebreyesus of the World Health Organization is having charges brought upon him, you have Julian Assange formally requesting a pardon from President Trump. Now think about this. And I talked about this just the other day. I think that QAnon took over the conspiratorial position that WikiLeaks did. You guys want to? Here's a crazy rabbit hole for you to go down, and then I'll get back into the topic. Look up, I think it's the Gulf of Aden or the Horn of Aden, and the WikiLeaks that was there. It talks about something that's almost like an Avengers episode. I kid you not, where they talk about portals opening up, Russia coming in, Somali pirates coming in, America coming in, Iran coming in, all kinds of different foreign navies coming in and carrying out operations in the area. It's pretty crazy. I'm not gonna lie. They talk about essentially like multidimensional creatures, massive energetic bursts, connecting spirals. It's pretty crazy. That's the connection between Africa, WikiLeaks, and more. Just a random rabbit hole for you guys to go down in the meantime. But back to Julian Assange formally requesting a pardon from President Trump. I said this earlier in the month that QAnon took the place of WikiLeaks. And you can say, oh, well, QAnon's controlled opposition. I would say WikiLeaks is controlled opposition. But it's the fact that, again, you have this ambiguous organization providing you information instead of us doing the research ourselves. But that's a different discussion for a different day. I think this is a good thing. You know, it seems like he may have it happen, but at the same time, Trump has let Assange rot for his entire terms. Let's get into this and then we'll continue on. Again, dystopian days, because this is what happens when you tell the truth. You get thrown in jail. get locked up? And how much support have we seen from Assange or for Assange in the truth community? Let's get into this. It says WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange formally requested a pardon from President Trump on Tuesday morning, according to the Gateway Pundit. The formal request follows a claim on Monday that Trump ally Pastor Mark Burns that the president was about to pardon Assange. While the pastor ended up retracting his statement due to, quote, faulty sources, it was clearly a move that people from both sides of the political spectrum would be in support of. Before being retracted, the tweet gained over 75,000 likes on Twitter. The Gateway Pundit reports that Assange's fiancée, Stella Morris, the mother of his two young children, has previously called for a pardon, but a formal request was not filed with the White House until this week. It goes on to say that Assange is imprisoned in the United Kingdom pending a decision about his extradition to the United States, where he faces charges underneath the Espionage Act for his publication of the war of the Iraq and Afghan war logs. If convicted, he could face a maximum sentence of 175 years for a, quote, crime of publishing material that the U.S. government did not want the population to know. In 2018, President Trump's attorneys quietly made a case in defense of WikiLeaks throughout legal filings, responding to a lawsuit filed by Democratic Party donors who alleged that the campaign and former advisor Roger Stone conspired with Russians to publish leaked documents or leaked Democratic National Committee emails. His name was Seth Rich. Getting back into this, it says that buried within hundreds of pages of case filings and a motion filed in October 2018, Trump lawyer Michael A. Carvin argued that under Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, a, quote, website that provides a forum where third parties can post information is not liable for the third party's posted information. Quote, that is so even when the website performs editorial functions such as deciding whether to publish the filing contents. Quote, since WikiLeaks provided a forum for a third party, the unnamed Russian actors, to publish content developed by the third party, it cannot be held liable for the publication. This defense holds true for the war logs releases that Assange has been charged for publishing. So basically, Julian Assange is calling for a pardon. He doesn't want to rot in jail. He sees that Trump is having this whole legal battle, this whole election contesting going on, and he's trying to get out of prison, saying, hey, I helped you win the 2016 election. Are you going to get me out of here? Are you going to get him out of here? He sees him throwing out pardons to everybody else. It's like, hey, what about me? I leaked these emails from a Hillary Clinton server that helps you get all these votes. Are you going to help me out? This is crazy. But the craziness isn't done. You know, the speculation of Trump pardoning Assange is kind of crazy because, well, why wouldn't you want to? What are the ramifications of that? You've got people saying, oh, he's a traitor. Edward Snowden is a traitor. They're making the public privy to information that they should know. The same thing is happening with this COVID nonsense. When politicians come out and reject the COVID-19 lockdowns or they reject the Great Reset, they're considered traitors. Well, who are they trading to? Who are they betraying? The global elite, the power structure, the controlling oligarchy, the people in control, the globalists. They're not traitors. Unfortunately, they're heroes. Now I was saying this, and I'll talk more about it in the next segment. The crazy psychology behind COVID, right, is you're a celebrity if you get COVID, and then you're a hero if you get the vaccine. You see how that works? They have somehow manipulated the population into thinking, well, shucks, if I get COVID, I'll become a celebrity. Wow, everybody will cater to me. I get to isolate. It'll be awesome. Well, then see, what's the next step if you get COVID? Well, you're going to get the vaccine, right? You want to be a hero, right? You want to save some lives, don't you? And that's how they got you. You see how that works? But speaking of lives, this is something that happened last week that should raise massive alarms. Brandy Vaughn, ex-pharmaceutical representative Brandy Vaughn, was found dead after warning people to investigate her death. Think about this. This is an article that comes from Aaron Wally of Collective Evolution. They put this up December 11th. Think about this. We're talking about pharmaceutical reps being murdered now. So not holistic practitioners, not doctors, but now pharmaceutical reps. That's kind of crazy. So again, what does this signify? That things are crazy. They don't want information getting out. And people who are within the power structure, they consider traitors. But these people have they feel basically compelled to tell us the truth because they understand that we're being lied to. Let's get into this article and we'll continue on. What happened? Quote, this comes from Erin Elizabeth, the founder of the Health Nut News. She says that, quote, it is with such a heavy heart that I list yet another activist found dead, and this time it is my friend and colleague, Brandy Vaughn, the founder of the well-known nonprofit Learn the Risk. She was found dead by her son, who is a minor. Christ. Says tragedy has struck the alternative / independent media world as Brandy Vaughn, a well-known drug, health, and vaccine safety advocate and former Merck pharmaceutical company representative, was found dead in her home, leaving behind a 9-year-old child who found her. This information comes from multiple friends of Vaughn across social media outlets, as well as Facebook itself, having now posted a note atop her Facebook page. It says little is known right now about her death, but Vaughn was the founder of LearnTheRisk.org, a website that created awareness about the dangers of various pharmaceutical drugs, including vaccines. Her background was working for a pharmaceutical giant, Merck, inspired her to do incredible and brave work that she did. She was a legend and worked extremely hard with enormous amounts of passion and determination. While working in the pharmaceutical industry, she sold Vioxx, a painkiller that was found to double the risk of stroke and heart attack, and was eventually taken off the market as a result. Quote, from that experience, I realized that just because something is on the market doesn't mean it's safe, explained Vaughn. Quote, much of what we are told by the healthcare industry just simply isn't the truth. Her organization created awareness in a very credible way. She gathered countless doctors and scientists from around the world and archived, published peer-reviewed research outlining the concerns of being raised in scientific communities about various drugs and vaccines. It was on to say that her organization reached millions of people globally every single month on social media and tens of thousands through her website alone. They posted 38 billboards, which reached over 30 million people, and they have hosted over 30 campaigns and rallies in the past 2 years. They produced videos and educational material that reached over 1 million people and did educational talks and events worldwide. Worldwide. We are actively changing the conversation about vaccines in the pharmaceutical industry, which should never be trusted with our collective health, should be involved. Says one chilling factor about her death remains, and that's the fact that she was concerned that she was going to pass away. On December 1st, 2019, she wrote the following on her Facebook page. She says, the post I thought I wish I didn't have to write. But given the certain sudden tragedies over the last couple of years, I feel it's absolutely necessary to post 10 facts. And please screenshot this for the record. I've never had any thoughts of taking my own life, not once, ever. Even before I had my son, I have a huge mission in this life. Even when they make it very difficult and scary, I would never take my own life, period. Bastian means everything to me, and I would never leave him, period. I have sole custody, and he needs me as much as I need him. I would never think of leaving him for a second. I've never been on antidepressants nor diagnosed as depressed. Don't believe it. If you ever hear anything like this, she's basically saying goodbye. That's the crazy thing, is you can tell she's saying goodbye. And this is the dystopian days that we're in. We've unfortunately talked about having to do our own goodbye show where we say, like, this is our final show, or, you know, hey, they've taken me out to like a FEMA camp or to like a social isolation camp, or hey, I'm gone. Like, there's no more EJ. Like, that's it. Freedom Faction's done. I've had that thought. I thought that was what was going to happen with these lockdowns, that they were going to come get me. You know, I told you guys earlier this week on the segment that they didn't save on Instagram, that BLM locally is putting out hits on people like me. And it's crazy. You know? But why do you think Brandy Vaughn was killed? Because she was educating people. She was arming them with the facts, giving them the information in a credible way, helping peel back the veil not only on vaccines, on dangerous pharmaceutical drugs, and the industry itself. Again, asking the question of why are we letting pharmaceutical companies dictate to us what a healthy course of action is? This is the dystopian daze, the haze that we find ourselves in, the malaise that we have to work through. Last week, and it got hardly any attention. Any attention. But see, this is the even bigger problem, all right? Back to people becoming a celebrity when they get COVID, and then a hero when they get the vaccine. This is what happens when you systematically censor and delete scientists, professors, doctors, and nurses who are coming out exposing the lethality of the vaccine and why they are dangerous. Because when people look for actual information, knowing that they're being propagandized to, they are looking for truthful information on a censored platform. This is the problem. They are unable to actually digest information and think for themselves because you have things like the Ministry of Misinformation, things like Fedbook actively working against them to manipulate their mind. Crazy. This is the dystopian days. And now, you have a Virginia gubernatorial candidate and Republican state senator Amanda Chase saying that Trump should declare martial law in the election fight. This is an article that comes from Breck DeMoss over there, The Blaze. They put this up December 15th. And before I get into this, I would thoroughly recommend you, my friends, to go check out the previous episode we did, The Seismic Social Shift, where we really got into depth about things like the Constitution. Essentially, Article 1, Section 8, and Clause 15, the power to call forth the militia. Now, that's my argument in response to martial law. Because, see, something as simple as election fraud is the opening door. It's the gateway drug, essentially. Oh, hey, well, we just want to try to make sure we have free and fair elections. Oh, well, we just want to try to make sure that you guys are actually following these lockdown rules. Oh, we just really want to see if you guys are actually social distance. Like, do you see how power creeps? I have a real hard problem with people saying we need to declare martial law. Because if you thought these lockdowns are bad, they're going to get a lot worse. Let me read this and then we'll continue on. This is Virginia gubernatorial candidate and Republican state senator Amanda Chase says President Trump, or President Donald Trump, quote, should declare martial law as his challenge continues in the wake of the Electoral College officially voting to affirm Joe Biden as president-elect. This is in a Facebook post. Reacting to the news of Biden's electoral victory, Chase wrote, in part, that, quote, not my president and never will be. The American people aren't fools. We know you cheated to win and will never accept these results. Fair elections we can accept, but cheating to win, never. It's not over yet. So thankful President Trump has a backbone and refuses to concede. President Trump should declare martial law as General Flynn recommended. On December 1st, former National Security Advisor General Michael Flynn, who was recently pardoned by Trump, tweeted an apparent endorsement of a news release from the We the People convention, which began that, quote, Tom Zawadzki, president of the Tea Party, affiliated. Wow, let me go ahead and say this. I'm going to just summarize it. Tom, president of the Tea Party, affiliated We the People convention and executive director of the Portage County Tea Party, published a full-page ad in the Washington Times newspaper demanding that President Trump invoked limited martial law in order to allow the U.S. military to oversee a new, free, and fair federal election if legislators, courts, and the Congress do not follow the Constitution. The Washington Post reported that in an interview Tuesday, Chase said she was holding out hope that Trump somehow would be declared the winner when the Electoral College ballots are formally counted during a joint session of Congress on January 6th. An all but impossible outcome, especially as Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell on Tuesday publicly acknowledged Biden's victory for the first time since the election. Bearing that extremely unlikely turn of events, Chase thinks martial law is in order. Under martial law, she said, troops would go and seize these voting machines and voting equipment to find the voter fraud, there needs to be a national audit. Now think about this. Limited martial law, like these limited lockdowns, is not going to go over very well. You know, and again, I have to get into this article next, because Trump did come out saying that it's too soon to give up the fight. I don't think, again, martial law is the way. I think a lot of this stuff is going to get exposed. There was an article that came out today. The majority of people in America believe that there was election interference more so than Russian involvement, okay? Because they can see them trying to pull this off. I don't think martial law is the case. Again, you got to let these criminals do all this stuff, you know, execute all these crimes so they can screw themselves over. But here, let me play this quick clip of Mitch McConnell congratulating Joe Biden, and then I'll talk about how more information has come out about Mitch McConnell essentially being a traitor and bought out by the Chinese. But let's play this and then we'll continue on.
I want to congratulate President-elect Joe Biden. The President-elect is no stranger to the Senate. He's devoted himself to public service for many years. I also want to congratulate the Vice President-elect, our colleague from California, Senator Harris. Beyond our differences, all Americans can take pride that our nation has a female Vice President-elect for the very first time. So today I want to congratulate President-elect Joe Biden. The President-elect is no stranger.
Let's get into this. Donald Trump says it's too close. It's too soon to give up the election fight. And I thoroughly believe this stuff is going to get drawn out probably past January, if you want the truth. You know, in previous cases where this type of election contesting has happened, there have been cases where back in all the way to March, to where some of this stuff has been drawn out. And they're going to keep trying to pull as many different scams as they can. The election fraud is going to come out. Biden's going to be underneath investigation. He's going to be declared like inept. All the truth is going to come out. All right. So I would agree that it is too soon to give up the fight. And this is why you have a lot of people, as I've said since the start of this, who are not going to want to hear the truth, who are going to get upset as more of this information comes out. They're just going to say, hey, shut up. He lost. Get over it. But the thing is they don't care about the information. They don't care about the rule of law. They don't care about the Constitution, the structure, and the order of things. And that's what we're going by. But let's get into this article. We put this up December 16th. It comes from Max Slavo over there at SHTF Blam. It says Donald Trump has expressed his irritation at politicians such as Mitch McConnell, who congratulated Joe Biden after the Electoral College voted to further cement the Democrats' win. But Trump has not thrown in the towel and says it's, quote, too soon to give up. Trump, to his social media of choice, Twitter, on Wednesday, venting his anger at the top of the Republican senator's words, according to a report by RT. Quote, Mitch, 75 million votes, a record for a sitting president by a lot. It's too soon to give up. Republican Party must finally learn to fight. People are angry, he wrote. The remark from Trump came in response to a statement made by McConnell on Tuesday in which he acknowledged Biden's win after the Electoral College vote, congratulating him and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. Quote, the Electoral College has spoken, McConnell said, noting that, quote, as of this morning, our country has a president-elect and a vice president-elect, even though, quote, many millions of us had hoped the presidential election would yield a different result. McConnell had reportedly privately warned fellow Republican senators against challenging the election results, urging them to not dispute the Electoral College decision during the upcoming joint session of Congress to confirm the results. The session is scheduled to take place on January 6th. The words of the Senate are the majority leader have angered Trump's supporters, with the most hardcore going so far as to accuse McConnell of being a traitor. And that's the tweet that I'm pulling up right now. It's of Lynn Wood, the attorney that also called for martial law, saying that, quote, Mitch McConnell is not a patriot. Ask his wife, she knows. Goes on to say that Mitch McConnell just wants power, influence, and money. He is willing to sell America to get what he wants. McConnell is a traitor to American patriots. His day is coming. His judgment day is coming. Goes on to say that the Trump campaign appears poised to stick this out for the next month as things continue to unravel. At this point, though, the division between the left and the right has never been wider. No Republican will accept a Biden presidency, and not one Democrat will accept another 4 years of Donald Trump. Yeah, this is the most polarized we've been ever. And then again, when you have foreign interference in our election taking place, you're going to upset people. Things are getting crazy out there. So I want to finish out this transmission, or at least finish out this segment, with a quick clip of Senator Rand Paul talking about not using or never wasting a crisis. You know, like they like to say, never let a good crisis go to waste. He accuses the states of using COVID to steal the elections. Well, we already knew. But here, let's take a listen, and then we'll close out this segment for you guys.
Double vote claims in Georgia. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul joins us. He sits on the Homeland Security Committee, which will soon hold a hearing on voting irregularities. I believe that's coming up at 10 a.m. Eastern time this morning. Senator, thank you, and great to have you here this morning. So what does all of this mean for the integrity of those Georgia runoffs, knowing that so much is at stake with this upcoming election?
Well, you'd think that all of this would be investigated and try to be fixed before the election. So if you have 1,700 people that voted twice, you would think that maybe they need to be charged and maybe not allowed to vote in the next election, or at least one of their votes canceled out. You would think that people who voted illegally from commercial addresses would be purged from the rolls. You'd think that they would check the death file and purge those who had died to make sure that they don't vote. I mean, we're going to hear testimony this morning from Nevada where 1,500 people were deceased and should not have voted. 4,000 people were illegal aliens, and 15,000 people voted from commercial addresses, and you have to vote from a home address.
Senator, what are we doing about it?
Well, here's the problem. Courts aren't very good at doing this. They just are very reticent to get involved. And so far, the court has turned down all of these appeals to look at the facts. No court has examined the facts. And this is sort of historically true. Courts don't like to do this. But even worse than this is, it's sort of Rahm Emanuel's playbook. They took the crisis of COVID and then they changed election law. But they changed election law not by changing the law at the state legislature. They had secretaries of state and governors simply by fiat change the law to say, oh, you can keep counting votes when the law didn't say that. So this election really was stolen in a way, and it was stolen because what happened is people changed the law. How can you change the law without asking the state legislature to do this? And I'm disappointed the courts haven't heard it.
Really interesting. We'll follow what comes from the 10 a.m. gathering, where I know that is going to be discussed, Senator. Meanwhile, we just topped our hour with two big stories that are seemingly ignored by the media, and that is Eric Swalwell and Hunter Biden. In the case of Hunter Biden, the AP is reporting this morning that President Trump may be considering pushing for a special counsel investigate Hunter Biden and his overseas business dealings, and specifically taxes paid on some of his income. Where does this go next? What do you want to see happen, Senator?
You know, the committee that I'm on that will meet in a couple of minutes on electoral fraud, we also investigated Hunter Biden, and we submitted a report, and I sent the report to the Department of Justice a month and a half ago asking for a criminal investigation. So I'm glad that it has commenced, and I think the only way we can be assured that it won't be swept under the rug is the U.S. Attorney in Delaware who is doing the investigation should not be fired by Biden. This is going to be a very important thing we're going to find out the first week in the Biden administration. Is he going to fire the prosecutor that is investigating his son, or will let him stay on? Historically, the U.S. attorneys are all let go from one administration to the next, but I think in this case, it will show a great deal of bias on Biden's part if he fires the prosecutor that's looking into his son.
Real quick, because I want to ask you about Eric Swalwell, but what would your expectation be on that, considering we've already seen how the president-elect has ignored questions from the media, and by media, I mean simply one of our reporters here from Fox News Channel asking really important questions about his overseas business dealings and that tax probe.
I think he's also been dishonest with us when he said that he knew nothing of his son's overseas activities. I mean, I have emails with Hunter Biden saying, hey, make sure you get a key for my dad, my mom, my uncle, and this Chinese national that I'm involved with that gave me a 2.8 carat diamond, uncut diamond or whatever. So there are a lot of things that we should be able to ask the president. A lot of the media is not asking these questions.
It's really important. Final thought on Eric Swalwell. Growing call from many Republicans who believe he should be removed from the House Intelligence Committee till they get more answers on his involvement with that suspected Chinese spy and whether or not he's compromised?
Yeah, I think to be careful and to cautious, he should actually resign from the Intelligence Committee. If he's not willing to do that, he should be removed from the Intelligence Committee. But I also think that what hypocrisy. This is the guy that was hurling stones and accusations, all kinds of false accusations at President Trump. Oh, he's controlled by spies and this and that. He was the most critic of President Trump on Russia collusion, and it turns out he's sleeping with a Chinese spy. I mean, it's the hypocrisy, it's appalling, and he really should be red-faced and ashamed of himself, and really probably ought to just resign from Congress.
We'll have a lot more on that coming up. Senator, really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
More now on the double.
Rand Paul's the shit. Isn't Rand Paul the shit? Him and his son, or him and his father, Ron Paul, are awesome. That's why you become a libertarian right there, because they are holding people's feet to the fire. We'll talk more about Eric Swalwell and how his campaign was funded by Chinese Communist Party's employees in the third segment. This is the dystopian days, all right? This is why we have to tell the truth. This is why we have to get this information out. This is why Julian Assange is an example for a lot of people. Call him what you want, controlled opposition, but this is what's happening. The information's coming out. Doesn't matter how you like it, but the truth has to come out and then action has to be taken. But we have to shake up out of this haze. We have to not get caught up in where they're trying to put us. I was going to close out this segment with a quick clip of how the New York Police Department has a robotic dog, but I don't want to terrify you guys. I don't want to terrify you any more so than we already have. But we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to be talking about toxic healthcare, what's going on with COVID-19, how Bill Gates has said that life may not return to normal even through 2022. You've also got a Southern California restaurant owner arguing with health inspectors saying, are you going to pay my rent? Huh? Are you going to pay my employees? We'll be talking about that, as well as a new Chinese study confirming that COVID-19 attacks the testicles and may affect male fertility. Things are heating up as more of this revelation comes out. You can't stop the truth. You can't stop us. But what's going to happen is we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be getting into this and more on the other side. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. This is Freedom Faction over here on Factions of Freedom, and we'll be right back right after this.
Understand what's going on around you. You are in a state of war, and you have precious little time to save yourself. It's a slow process which we call active measures. The first stage being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. The next stage is destabilization. What matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. The next stage is crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, period of normalization. This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C., who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not. The time bomb is ticking. With every second, the disaster is coming closer and closer. The danger is real.
In a world where secret powers are at play, where nothing is as it seems. One brand of clothing gives crusaders of truth a voice. One brand in the fight against terror, deceit, and destruction. We are not merchants of fear. We are not a parody of free thinkers.
It was almost like they ignored it because they wanted it to happen.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat.
This season, get ready to awaken the masses.
Forget the politicians. Politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you.
Forbidden clothes. Because if you know, you know.
Salutations, and welcome back. You know, there is really no time like the president. No time like the president. There's really no time like the present. There really isn't. And, you know, I am blessed to literally be in this weird fulcrum position where I really am able to, with antics, jokes, shenanigans, and other things like that, euphemisms and more, I'm able to explain and convey the severity, the time frames that we're in. Yes, the things that we're dealing with are no doubt scary, fearful almost, but at the same time, we were not given a spirit of fear. We're not rats. We're not supposed to sit up over here and cower in the face of all of this stuff. We're supposed to rise. We're supposed to grow. We're supposed to become stronger in the face of these problems. We're supposed to push that boulder. Oh, move that ball down the field. Yeah. We see these things happening, no doubt. But as I said before at the intro of the show, it forces us to say, well, do we want to capitulate? Do we want to be compliant? You know, how does this work? Where are we going to go? What happens is it forces us to really look at the tools that we have at our disposal. Are we playing politics? Are we trying to be cute? Do we really care about those things? Right? You see, through, again, my jokes, my delivery method of being able to convey these extremely controversial and heady topics in the fashion that I do, I try to, again, break those social norms, break that mind control, and really talk to you as an individual and understand what's happening. I'm a boots on the ground kind of guy. I don't have a Bugatti. I don't have a multi-$1,000 car. You know, I don't have all the fixings and the et cetera. What I got is a pack of pups, a little farm over here, and a great lady that wants to stay by me and wants to have my kids. That's what I got. And I'm the wealthiest person ever. I'm happy, man. I'm blessed. Again, to be in this position and talk about these type of things. But the reason I tell you this is because no one else is going to be grateful for your life. We're going to be talking about some pretty heady topics coming up here soon. No doubt. COVID's going crazy. But the reason I'm telling you this is because that's what this taught us. I think because we were, again, in that dystopian days, that malaise and that haze, we didn't really care. We were doom scrolling. But now as people become, activated and agitated about these type of things and they want to be safe, they're thinking about things a little bit different. And they're appreciative about what little they have. Instead of just, being caught up by so many different things. And so I hope that 2020 taught you some of these things, taught you how to be, again, appreciative and grateful for what you have, because it can get gone real quick, just like that. And that's their plan. When you go to the World Economic Forum and you read more about the Great Reset, they don't want you to own a single thing, and they want you to love it. They want you to love the fact that you're a slave, that you're a product of your environment. You see, because when everything else is free, you become the product. We'll save that for future conversations, but keep all these things in mind, team. In this segment, we're going to be talking about, obviously, the medical martial law, medical tyranny, toxic health care, what COVID has wrought, and what it has brought with it. You know, last week, as always, people have things to say. Last week, Melinda Gates came out saying that she was disappointed that America was going to get the vaccine first. You may have noticed that Trump's not going to get the vaccine. Nope. Him or no one in the White House is going to get the vaccine. The Pfizer CEO, the person who's deploying these vaccines, is saying, no, I'm not getting it either. I don't want to cut the line. Notice that, and I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm saying what everybody else is thinking. Plus, I'm not getting the vaccine. The reason why they called that V-Day is because they wanted to take a stab at D-Day, World War II type stuff. They wanted people to rush to get this vaccine so they can watch the experiment that takes place. That's the social engineering. So that's why you've got, again, Melinda Gates coming up, Bill Gates coming up, Cuomo coming up, Trump coming up, Biden coming up, all Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, George Bush, all of the globalists, Boris Johnson, all of the people that could influence you to take the vaccine. That's why they're doing all of this, to social engineer you, to make you very distrustful and cautious. But at the same time, they're going to push it anyway. They're going to have people take the vaccine because they need that experiment. They need that data. Let's play this clip of Melinda Gates saying that she's upset that Americans are going to get the vaccine first, and then we'll continue on from there.
An executive order to try to put Americans at the front of the line when it comes to vaccines. Granted, it doesn't really have any teeth because pharmaceutical companies have already made deals and guarantees with other nations around the world. But I just wonder if that's what you were worried about when you kept saying and warning against vaccine nationalism.
That's exactly what we were worried about. Instead, what should be done is the Defense Production Act, which is they should be scaling up lots and lots of manufacturing so that not just the U.S. gets vaccines, but everybody gets vaccines. So this reservation system is exactly the type of thing we were concerned about.
What did you think when you heard the president say that?
I knew it was coming, and I was just incredibly disappointed. I'm much more optimistic about the president-elect and the COVID task force, this imminent task force that he's put together. I think we're going to see a lot more sensible policy making in the United States. But that starts, January 20th, and we have still some dark months to live ahead till then.
Have you been speaking to the president-elect directly?
Yes, we have.
So what did you, and maybe you and Bill, tell?
And so the world needs to put up more money to make sure that low-income countries can get the vaccine.
The world needs to put up more money to make sure all these impoverished people get this vaccine. All right? Warning against vaccine nationalism. Okay? You see, what's happening right now? Again, that's why they have the image of a black woman giving another black woman a shot. You've got Anthony Fauci getting up there saying, hey, black people should want to take the vaccine. It's made by another black person. I'm just like, Christ, you guys really need to stop all this because you would have a better chance of selling this if you didn't do what you're doing. In fact, you're doing all of what you're doing lets a lot of people know that this is super shady. I've had a lot of people send me that clip this week of what a retractable vaccination needle looks like. It's where you're able to put liquid inside of what seems to be like a vaccine shot. You're able to put it up to somebody's arm, and then as the so-called needle goes into their arm, it retracts actually into the syringe, and then you're able to press water or whatever is inside of the container into somebody, making it look like they were actually shot with something. And so what I'm saying by this is you're being propagandized to. Okay, you need to understand that. Vaccine nationalism, having everybody take these vaccines, Bill and Melinda Gates acting like it's a shocker. This is all a part of the social engineering, the propaganda. Okay? People are seeing the trials of people developing Bell's palsy and day-long headaches, all kinds of other respiratory issues. People are seeing this. This is why they're trying to censor as much information as they can. And as soon as it comes out, they've got to censor it. This happened last week. Melinda Gates saying, "Oh, y'all need to put up more money for these poor countries. Make sure they get this vaccine." This happened last week, and then this week you've got Bill Gates coming out saying that life may not return to normal even through 2022. Now, think about this. They're doing a series of interviews, and the clip cut it off right there, that Bill and Melinda have been talking to the president-elect that, yeah, they're going to help take over the vaccination distribution schedule. I forget what the program's called, but Palantir, the Amazon CIA monster that's behind a lot of the surveillance state equipment, they are going to be creating a vaccination database that puts out all this information, and you can bet Bill Gates is behind it. But here, let's play this quick clip of Bill Gates on CNN talking about how life won't return to normal. Again, they're trying to hold our lives hostage until they give us the shot. Let's listen.
Under brand new stay-at-home orders, as hospitals there risk being overwhelmed, there are a lot of governors who oppose bringing back these lockdown orders and forcing businesses to close. What do you think? Do you think more states need to consider taking that kind of drastic action and the kind of drastic action we saw when the pandemic first began, or can there be a more nuanced approach?
Well, certainly mask wearing has essentially no downside. They're not expensive. Bars and restaurants in most of the country will be closed as we go into this wave, and I think, sadly, that's appropriate. Depending on how severe it is, the decision about schools is much more complicated because the benefits are pretty high. The amount of transmission is not the same as in restaurants and bars. So, trade-offs will have to be made. But the next 4 to 6 months really call on us to do our best, because we can see that this will end, and you don't want somebody you love to be the last to die of coronavirus.
When do you think life will fully return to what we thought of as normal back in January? No masks, no social distancing, no other protective measures.
So I've got to interrupt this guy real quick, because audio listeners, you guys can't see this, but as always, Bill Gates is smiling like a lunatic and a megalomaniac as this reporter is asking him this question. He's talking about how life is not normal. Things are abnormal. Bill, when are we going to get back to normal? And you can't see it, audio listeners, but he's just got this S-eating grin on his face saying, well, I don't think it's going to get back to normal anytime soon. This is just what it is. You can't see it, but it's actually kind of creepy and insidious, the glee that's on his face as our lives and our livelihood is being taken away from us. It's evil. But again, he's taking pleasure and, again, robbing you of your individuality, robbing you of your future, robbing you of your right to live. This is crazy.
Coronavirus.
When do you think life will fully return to what we thought of as normal back in January? No masks, no social distancing, no other protective measures necessary.
Certainly by the summer, we'll be way closer to normal than we are now. But even through early 2022, unless we help other countries get rid of this disease and we get high vaccination rates in our country, the risk of reintroduction will be there. And of course, the global economy will be slowed down, which hurts America economically in a pretty dramatic way. So we'll have, starting in the summer, about 9 months where a few things like big public gatherings will still be restricted. But we can see now that somewhere between 12 to 18 months, we have a chance, if we manage it well, to get back to normal.
And obviously we're changing. People in California are right now under brand new stay-at-home orders.
Think about this real quick. What did he also say that Melinda Gates brought up? Essentially vaccine nationalism, how we have to get other countries to accept this vaccine so we can eradicate the disease and get back to normal. They want to use the vaccine as a way to release the virus. Mark my words. That's what's happening in the UK right now. I thoroughly believe that. I thoroughly believe that they will use the vaccine to release the virus. And I say that because in the UK, they have begun to warn of a highly new infectious strain of the coronavirus discovered in southern England. This is an article that comes from Zero Hedge. They put this up December 14th. And think about this. This was the main thing that I was worried about, the severe adverse vaccine reactions and the mutations that come from introducing a live virus into somebody's body. Let's get into this, and then we'll get back into things. It says, remember all those Twitter armchair analysts who whined about Jeffrey Gundlach's recent speculation about the effectiveness of the looming U.S. vaccine rollout for not being rooted in the, quote, science? Even though Gundlach was clearly sharing that what was clearly speculation about the prospects for the rollout, or at least that's what it sounded like, his comments about the pace at which SARS-CoV-2 mutates seem to evoke some particular scorn. Some claim that Gundlach's speculation about the long-term effectiveness of the first generation of coronavirus vaccines was based entirely on fiction and asserted that there's simply no logical reason to question the notion that the mRNA jabs will be 100% effective, or rather 95% effective, at least purportedly for Pfizer and Moderna's models, and completely safe. Well, in what has become the biggest COVID-19 related headline news of the day, UK Health Secretary Matthew Hancock revealed on Monday during an update before Parliament that new evidence of a new strain of the virus that's particularly spreading more efficiently than earlier known strains. Yeah, think about this, because you've already got the population exposed to the virus, and then you're introducing a whole new strain of the virus to a population that has somewhat of the same biological makeup, not necessarily genetic makeup, but they have the same somewhat immunity, and you're introducing a live virus, disrupting that. Getting back into this, it says Hancock insisted that there's no evidence that the vaccine is more deadly or that the newly introduced vaccines will be less effective at combating infection. Though it's hard not to notice that the findings echo similar comments from government scientists in southern Australia, who warned of evidence of more infectious and possibly more deadly mutations as justification to order a brief but extremely severe circuit breaker lockdown last month. At least 60 different local authorities had documented cases of new strain and its role in, quote, exponential rises in coronavirus infections across London, Kent, parts of Essex, and Hertfordshire. Scotland's Nicola Sturgeon said on Twitter that the news was certainly concerning and that she would be considering whether, quote, additional precautions are necessary. Goes on to say that the news followed Hancock's confirmation to London's MP that the capital city would be moved to, quote, Tier 3 restrictions beginning Wednesday, something that Mayor Sadiq Khan had suggested earlier was likely. So because of this new strain that's coming out, after they introduce vaccines into the population, they're saying, well, we need more lockdowns. That's that dark winter, okay? That's Operation Dark Winter right there. And as soon as they start introducing the vaccines, that's when we're going to see the mutations. That's when stuff's going to spiral. That's whenever stuff's going to get crazy. That's why Bill Gates himself said, we just have to prepare for the next one. Because they know what they're doing. Here's a quick clip of a protester in Costco, in a branch of Costco, saying, don't let them do it. Staging an anti-lockdown protest, fighting for our rights.
Let them do it. You know why we're under this lockdown right now? Because all the information is coming out about COVID, and they know it's a farce. Hey guys, we must not do this. Let's keep going, guys. If you continue, this is the life that you will have. Let's just keep going, guys. Keep going. Don't tell me I have the right. You know what? Governor Newsom doesn't have the right to shut us down to make you wear a mask. That's right. All right, people, you know that's right. We've got to stand up for ourselves because this governor is going to keep us locked down until we do something about it. And I want to know, are you going to let this happen? It's a beautiful day outside, and I want to let them do it.
That's what we need.
You know why we're locked down right now? Because
that's what we need. We need people standing up. We need people fighting back in every kind of way. Here, locally, just a quick shout out because we have a whole new crop of listeners. We had somebody, Sarah Smith, in our own of the unmasked organization of the New Mexico Freedom Alliance out here, help stage a similar protest where she stood in line for old people She didn't want those old folks standing in line for the groceries, so she came up with a great idea. She said, let's hold signs, wait in line for these old folks that put down our governor. And guess what? They removed the 75-person limit capacity because of the grocery store protest. We need more things like this. We need more people standing up, going out of their way, doing things like this, because if not, and I talked about this earlier this week on Instagram Live. I played the clip for you guys. I'm about to pull it up for you now. Because if not, we'll get more of this, where you have people who feel glorified to get inside of your face and your personal business, violating social distance, telling you to put your effing mask on. This happened.
Mask on.
I'm sorry, you can walk away from me right now, sir.
Put your mask on.
Get away from me.
Put it on. Does it bother anybody else that she doesn't have to wear a mask that we all do?
Just go away. Stay 6 feet away from me then.
No.
Get away from me.
No.
You need to call security?
Yeah.
Please get away from me right now.
No.
You don't know why. You don't need to come near me.
She has it on her damn hand.
Get away from me. Walk away from me, sir. Please get away from me.
You don't care.
Leave me alone.
She
Stay 6 feet away from me then.
Cannot infect my baby.
Get out of here.
You're a loser.
I know who you voted
for. Hilarious. But that's what we need. We need more people fighting back against this tyranny, fighting back against the conformity that's taking place. Where does this person get off? Where does he get the authority? What makes him think he has the right to tell you how to live your life? Not recommend it, not suggest it, but get in your face and tell you what to do. That's the problem. Because they're not going to pay your rent. They're not going to do the groceries for you. They're not going to do the laundry. They're not going to clean the yard. They're not going to do all this stuff for you. They don't know what's best for you. But you see, that's what's happened. Is people want to virtue signal. They don't want to actually go against the real tyrants and the real bullies that are in positions of power that need to be deposed. No. They want to push around their fellow man. This very same thing happened in California, where a restaurant owner, Nick the Greek, was fired up in Ventura, California. He said, are you going to pay my rent? And this is what we need. We need more people fighting back, because these people think it's okay, just like Bill Gates, to hold your life hostage, to give you existence with conditions. We need more people fighting back. And you see, I said this at the start of the show. Where do revolutions get planned? Inside of bars, inside of churches, inside of schools, inside of restaurants, inside of all the places that got shut down. You imagine trying to plan a revolution inside of a strip club? Way too distracting. But here, let me play this quick clip, and then we'll continue on.
The rules. I continue to follow the rules, and you guys still, time after time, are giving me citations, telling me I have to close my business. What about my employees? I am following the rules. My tables are inside. Just because the health department has a whole process to go through that takes however long that takes, I have to close my business for that time? Who is it? Are you going to pay my rent? Are you going to pay my rent? I chose to protest by putting my tables outside, and I reiterate again, I never served one single person outside. I did all takeout food and delivery to what exactly I was supposed to be doing. That's exactly what I did. I did not break any, and there's not even a law, I did not break any rule.
There is a law that you're breaking right now by operating without a permit.
Because you guys put this closure on my restaurant. So you guys yourselves are creating your own rule, and you're giving my citation for your own rule. It's not my law that you cannot sit outside. That's not law, that's an order. So you cannot give me a closure citation based on that.
It's already been ordered. I'm not issuing a closure. I'm saying,
what do you mean you're issuing a closure? You guys closed me. You guys asked me to close me.
I'm not issuing the citation, the closure. The restaurant is already closed. The permit has been suspended. However, your refusal to close warrants a...
Because what am I going to do if I close? Are you going to pay my rent?
No. All we need
okay, so if you're not going to pay my rent, I'm not closing.
We need to reopen.
If you're not going to pay my rent, I told you already.
We could have reopened today. We could be open right now.
How did you issue me a citation instead of telling me I've been open?
Yeah, well, we missed those steps. The steps that you need to take to make sure that you can open your business
And see, that's how it works. The tyrant's telling him it's his fault.
Which I did. I called the guy. The guy I spoke to on the phone was a supervisor. Because he made a mistake, that was on me. He made a mistake. I recorded on my phone what he said. Yes, he did. He told me if I put it in writing to him on an email that I will follow the rules and I will not put my tables outside down.
You see how that works? You see how the tyrants throw it back at him? Oh, you didn't follow the rules. We got to shut you down. I followed the rules. What are you talking about? No, you didn't. You didn't follow them to this T. Yes, I did. Here's the example. What are you here for? More people are fighting back. That's the crazy thing. Because just last week, we were talking about how a bar got shut down. There was a protest right outside of that. People are going to fight back. In Michigan, they have over 400 different restaurant owners that have formed a coalition to take down the governor. This is what has to happen. We've got to figure out what our skills are, what our resources are, what wherewithal we have, and what to do. Because they're trying to rob you of your individuality. They want to rob you of your right to live. The owner of Barstool Sports came out and said that Andrew Cuomo is disrupting your right to live. And this is what needs to happen. People need to fight back. They need to stand up legally and lawfully, understand how to fight back instead of capitulate. Because there's a study out today saying that business owners understand that this is just the beginning. This is the first wave. They know that much more is coming. I forget the statistic. I think it's like over 70 different restaurants in New York City are not coming back. The restaurant industry is in free fall. They are trying to be as compliant as possible. But see, that's the problem. You cannot capitulate with tyranny. You have to fight back. You've got to step up. You got to stand up for yourself. And we're going to see that. We're going to see people rolling back some of these restrictions, fighting back against these lockdowns. And if not, I'll tell you what's going to happen. You're going to see a lot more speakeasies coming up. You're going to see, okay, cool. You want to shut us down? Great. We'll still have meetings here. We will still have candlelit conversations conspiring on how to take down this tyrannical government. Because that's where revolution happens. And I can tell you, some of that is, for sure, happening. You see, this is the world right now. This is toxic healthcare. You see how much Big Brother loves you? You see the global communism and the medical Marxism that's being pushed out there right now? Yeah, oh, they care for you so much. They just want to love you like Jeffrey Epstein. They just want to strangle you into submission. And now you have the UN launching a website called Verified, where over 110,000 information volunteers will help control the narrative about the COVID-19 vaccine.
This is the biggest act of collaboration in history, and we're all playing our part. Billions working as a team.
I don't think there's any words for that, but to everybody, thank you.
All looking out for one another.
Soap opera, soap opera.
As we contain the virus, we must also contain misinformation.
Have you heard 5G causes coronavirus?
I've created the cure.
Does blow drying your nostrils kill the virus?
Fake news, rumors, and misinformation spread even more quickly than the virus, and its impact is deadly.
Sounds like something Bill Gates did say. What I'm about to read to you from Now the End Begins is what we covered literally just last week. They want verified information. Okay, so this is, again, more of that ministry of truth, okay? They think that people are too gosh darn stupid to think for themselves, to know how to research, to look at the studies, to understand, again, adverse vaccine reactions and some of the severe things that come with that. No. They need to propagandize you. That's what I'm about to read. How the United Nations is teaming up with local governments and regional governments, global communications, to propagandize you. And when they say information volunteers, I'm one of those. Let's get into this. It comes from Jeffrey Greta. They put this up December 14th. It says the United Nations launches a site called Verified, where 110,000 information volunteers will help control the narrative about COVID-19 vaccine. Quote, When COVID-19 emerged, it was clear from the outset that this was not just a public health emergency, but a communications crisis as well, says Melissa Fleming, who leads global communications for the United Nations. She launched Verified to control the COVID conversation. And so this is, again, COVID-19 84, where you are being propagandized, where they're censoring information, manipulating the outcome, showing you as they're tricking you. Getting back into this, it says that the global elites at the United Nations and the World Economic Forum are very upset that you might actually stumble across the truth about the messenger 33 coronavirus vaccine, the mind-numbing side effects, and the coming digital identification. So they have launched a site called Verified to tell you what your opinion is. Not only that, they have so far recruited over 110,000 information volunteers to make sure you don't stay too far off the official script. In Nazi Germany, it was called the Ministry of Propaganda. In 2020, it's called the Ministry of Misinformation. Now, think about this. The cute little hashtag they have is hashtag pledge to pause. Unfortunately, I didn't get around to posting it on our page, or one of our pages, but this past weekend, I saw flyers around town, and a buddy of mine brought one to a protest. Says, look at this. Says, stay home and send love from there. Hashtag positive propaganda. Positive propaganda. And this is what we saw too at the start of this whole pandemic when they told you to hashtag stay at home together. Where they had Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, the whole litany of Hollywood despots up there basically talking about how we're all in this together. So again, here's that social reinforcement, that propaganda. Hey, here's the narrative, here's the narrative, here's the narrative. Go along with it. You've got to understand the idea is to break down your individual will, make you, again, think that by getting COVID, you're a celebrity like everybody else. And then you'll become a hero. You'll transform into a hero when you get the vaccine. Let me get back into this article. It says there is a cute little hashtag that goes with the verified site called hashtag pledge to pause. And what are they actually asking you to do? They're asking you too, when you feel the urge to do some independent critical thinking, to pledge to pause those thoughts until your sanity returns and return back to the fold of the mindless drones who think that the United Nations has their best interest at heart. You are living in a movie. And everything you were watching is scripted theater. Never forget that. Also, never forget that all of this is literally unfolding of Bible prophecy. This next part comes from the World Economic Forum. It says that in a world where social media is increasingly where most of us get so much of our information and where we value the freedom of speech as a cornerstone of democracy, what can be done to combat dangerous misinformation? Quote, when COVID-19 emerged, it was clear from the outset that this was not just a public health emergency, but a communications crisis as well, said Melissa Fleming, who leads global communications for the United Nations. With a huge public demand for information about the pandemic and the rapid spread of false information, the infodemic is putting lives at risk. So Fleming is heading a campaign to help true information surface out of the deluge of rumors and lies. She has launched Verified, where people can sign up for daily emails of the latest COVID news that comes from reliable sources, quote, science-based information that might otherwise be buried on 125 pages of a PDF, presented in formats that are optimized from sharing on social media. Quote, it is in front and center of your social media feeds so it can compete with the slick misinformation content, Fleming says. The UN is also encouraging us to stop rushing to repost potentially dubious content, promoting the hashtag pledge to pause. Sometimes I can't help but think of how they're thinking of me. I can't help but think of how they may have used me as an example in one way, shape, or form to do this type of stuff. Because again, I am an information volunteer. I try to provide the information for you guys in a sleek, digestible fashion that's relevant and in your face and in your feed, and you can find it whenever. But you see, they can't have that. They can't have people freely looking up information on some of their favorite social media platforms, so they have to have verified information. So the same way that you're seeing targeted ads is the same way that you're going to see targeted information regarding COVID-19 and the vaccine. But Speaking of this, I wonder if these verified people will mention this. Apparently, Coca-Cola tested positive for COVID-19 in the Austrian parliament. Yeah, how crazy is that? General Secretary Michael Schneitz brings a glass of Coca-Cola to a podium from which he proceeds to collect drops to use on an antigen rapid test being used on mass scale. He literally conducts a test and says, even this tests positive for COVID-19. It's because they're able to magnify, they're able to zoom the test to show the results that it wants. It's the common cold. They have somehow weaponized the common cold. So yes, you can test positive for or even find minute traces of it if you're really looking for it. And that's what they want. They want a highly infectious or a highly contagious disease that's extremely or very or not very deadly. Highly contagious, but less deadly. And the idea behind that is so that they can, again, make everybody a suspect. But here, let's get into this article and then we'll get into this. We put this up December 14th. It comes from Health Impact News. It says, an Austrian parliamentary member exposed the effectiveness of the government's COVID-19 test by demonstrating in parliament how a glass of Coca-Cola tested positive for COVID-19. In footage from the meeting in Vienna Friday, FPO General Secretary Michael Schneitz brings a glass of Coca-Cola to the podium from which he proceeds to collect drops to use on an antigen test being used on mass scale. After going to the lectern and stating his speech, the politician sprinkled a few drops of Coca-Cola on the Corona rapid test. 3 minutes later, the test showed a result that Coca-Cola was positive for COVID-19. After demonstrating a positive results, Schneitz goes on to slam the tests as a waste of taxpayers' resources. Quote, Mr. President, we are likely to have a problem now. We have a positive corona test in Parliament. Namely, this cola triggered a positive corona test. I don't know how to deal with it now. With things like this, you were throwing tens of millions of euros in tax money out of the window instead of providing real protection for old peoples and nursing homes, instead of investing in our hospitals. Because it's a sham. And I wonder if those people that are putting out this COVID-19 verified information will report on that Coca-Cola tested positive, a goat tested positive. It's like a papaya and a goat tested positive in Africa. They tested that for COVID-19 as well. And the test said it's positive. So what happens whenever you just have all these tests coming out? It's not that they're necessarily ineffective, but they're saying, you've got COVID, you've got COVID, you've got COVID, you've got COVID. And they're all false positives. They're all false positives. And then when you think, too, about the vaccine, what's the purpose of it? What is happening? This is a bungle. This is one of the biggest hiccups of all time. So I wonder if those verified information volunteers will put that type of information out. Because we have fact checkers on the page. That's not fact checked. That's not misinformation. That's not false. That's real. Because it's from the Austrian parliament. Now, another thing that is also very real that doesn't get any attention, and that it's also not necessarily fact checked on the page, but on the page and not fact checked, is this right here. A new Chinese study confirms that COVID-19 attacks the testicles and may affect male fertility. This is an article that comes from Planet Free Will. They put this up December 15th. And before I get into this, we've talked about this before, especially when looking at COVID-19 as a biological weapon. If the Chinese release this, it attacks your upper respiratory tract, it makes you like sick, and now it's attacking your balls. This is a soft kill weapon. A binary weapon too when you include the vaccine and the severe adverse vaccine reactions that it's going to cause. So you're already crippled in the lungs, right? You're debilitated. Boom. It attacks your testicles, your testosterone, your sperm count, all this makes you inept and sterile. Wouldn't this be the best way to influence or to disrupt your potential adversary? You guys know that we're in like a soft, cold war with China, right? That they got sociologists and professors coming out basically laughing at us saying, look, they failed the test for COVID. Oh, stupid Americans. Oh. You know, they laugh at us, right? Sure would be convenient if they were able to release a virus that debilitates a significant amount of the population. This is something that is only effective towards people who have comorbidity factors, things that they're already working with, kills off old people, debilitates an entire generation, makes them inept and sterile. It's a very, very sophisticated virus. But see, if they were to talk about it from this angle, I think a lot more people would understand the necessity for social distancing and everything else. But because a lot of these hardcore facts miss the public, the information volunteers don't know how to get this type of verified information out there, people become ignorant. But you see, I come at it from the angle of, if this is a bioweapons attack, this would be the type of thing that it would do. That it would destroy an entire generation's fertility rates, akin to what happened to China. You already have people not having kids because of the fear of COVID. Well, now you're hearing that COVID literally makes people not have kids. It's actually very scary to think about. But let's get into this article and then we'll continue on. It says a new study has revealed that SARS-CoV-2, the virus which causes COVID-19, infects the testicles and likely impacts male fertility. Recall in March, we reported that doctors in central Wuhan raised concerns over testicle damage after observing a lowered ratio of testosterone to luteinizing hormone. Now, 9 months later, a team of researchers from Wuhan, China, have published disturbing evidence from a small sample of patients that COVID-19 not only infects the testicles, but may interfere with sperm production by causing inflammation and a massive loss in young sperm cells. The team's findings on how COVID-19 infects testicles corroborates the March reporting, namely the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein binds to the ACE2 receptors, which are produced throughout the body, including semi-inferior tubules, which carry sperm while it matures. Quote, strikingly, in 4 of the 5 cases, GC germ cell loss was massive, with only a few GCs left attached to the seminaris tubules. Read the study, published Monday in Nature Cellular and Molecular Immunology. 5 COVID-19 patients included in the study were aged 51, 62, 70, and 78, and 83 years of age, while control patients were 71, 78, and 80. And though they may lie on the older end of the curve where male fertility began to decline, the controls group cells were, quote, aligned well around the whole seminiferous tubulus compared to the COVID-19 patients. Quote, consistent with the immunohistochemistry results, RT-qPCR showed significantly increased mRNA levels of ACE2 and TMPRSS2 in tests of all the COVID-19 patients compared to the control patient tests. Read the report, which further supports the hypothesis that SARS-CoV-2 is able to attack testicular cells. It is unknown how the virus increases ACE2 production in the testes. Quote, collectively, our findings provide direct evidence that SARS-CoV-2 can infect the testes and GCs, indicating the potential impact of COVID-19 pandemic on spermatogenesis and male fertility. While the study is small with just 5 patients or participants, the author writes that, quote, further study is essential to reveal the underlying mechanisms of SARS-CoV-2 infection of testicular cells and the correlation of tests infections with the clinical course of COVID-19. Perhaps men who have recovered from COVID-19 should have their sperm counts tested. So I, again, wonder if these people who are putting out voluntary information make the people aware of that. Make people aware of the fact that it is attacking your fertility. Not only does it attack your lungs, but it attacks your fertility. I'm thinking this. This is crazy. But I can't help but think of, I'll be honest, I don't think that's fake news. I don't think that's fear-mongering. I don't think that's propaganda. I think that's legit. If it came from China like that, who knows? They could be, again, doing what they do and lying. Talked about it earlier in the show, how Tedros Ghebreyesus, the World Health Organization Secretary General, ran cover for China. Could be more of that. But the fact is, I think this is a bioweapon. It's not that it's not real, that it is lethal and that it can mutate. There are some people saying, well, if it's going to mutate into something that's ineffective and the vaccines won't be necessary. But again, there's that binary weapons aspect. Have it be much more infectious, less deadly, so that when people do go get the vaccine, they're able to get this live virus injected into them that has this mutation, and essentially that cytokine storm inside of their system that just shuts stuff down. Like, it's crazy looking into, again, the science behind the COVID-19 virus itself and what they're putting in the vaccine. That's why I can't say anything else other than like a binary bioweapon, to where it's dangerous what they're doing. You know, again, this is why I read to you earlier in the show, or in this segment, how the UK warned of a highly infectious new coronavirus strain discovered in southern England. And I thought, well, of course this is going to happen a week after they put the vaccine out there, because they're creating new viruses. They're going to release the virus through the vaccine. So even if people don't get the vaccine, they're still going to come into contact with it, or at least with some of the byproducts, so to speak. You know, and now, here in America, you have the U.S. administering its first COVID-19 vaccine on a New York ICU nurse. Huh. So they're rolling it out. And here's that archetypal image of a black nurse, of a black doctor giving a black nurse a vaccine. Hey, black people, it's okay. No, it's not. I have another article that I'll finish out this segment. It's of Minister Louis Farrakhan of the Nation of Islam coming out saying, hey, do not take that vaccine. It's toxic waste. If you go read Joe Biden's COVID-19 lockdown action plan, they talk about how they want to propagandize black folks for the vaccine, because they understand with things like the Tuskegee experiment and more, we have a history of being lied to, manipulated, Iran, and so forth. And then you'll have people say, well, oh, you have all these, you guys are doing all this drugs, you know, you're doing all these things. Well, you're not going to take a vaccine. Again, people are having access to information, seeing the studies just like we are, and they're able to have these thoughts for themselves. They're making educated and informed decisions to not take a vaccine. And what did Melinda Gates say as well with vaccine nationalism, and how she's upset that we're getting the vaccine first because they want to give it to third world populations first, okay? That's how the Gates work. That's why they're kicked out of India and kicked out of Africa. That's why they're trying to run a scam here. That's how they operate, is they deploy the vaccines on the third world population first so they can get the trial data that they need, and then gradually work on giving a perfected version to the first world and then selling it for profit, still profiteering off of experimentation and death, eugenics and death science. Let me get into this article. This comes from Sarah Taylor over there at The Blaze. They put this up December 14th. It says that the United States has administered the very first Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine, according to various reporting. What are the details, though? It says the U.S. rollout began on Monday as Sandra Lindsay, a critical care nurse from Northwell Long Island Jewish Medical Center in Queens, New York, received the coronavirus vaccine at 9:23 Eastern Standard Time on Monday, according to CNN. The event was live streamed with New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. Quote, "You didn't flinch," Cuomo quipped of Lindsay's vaccination. Of the vaccine, Lindsay said, quote, "I'm feeling well. I would like to thank all of my frontline workers and all of my colleagues doing their job during this pandemic and all over the world. I feel hopeful today, relieved, and I hope this marks the beginning of the end of a very painful time." Cuomo added that, quote, "In New York, we prioritized healthcare workers at the top of the list to receive the vaccine because we know that you are out there every day putting your lives in danger for the rest of us." Quote, "So this is the light at the end of the tunnel," he added. Quote, "But it's a long tunnel and we need people to continue to do the right thing and the smart thing all through the holiday season. And hopefully, when we get to about June, they estimate the vaccine can hit critical mass, but healthcare workers will get it first because we know that you were super stressed during this holiday season." According to reports, the University of Louisville Hospital in Louisville, Kentucky received its first delivery of the vaccine this morning, and other areas in New York, Connecticut, Iowa, Michigan, and Washington, D.C. are also expected to administer COVID-19 vaccines on Monday. CNN reported that, quote, "The first batch of the vaccine was shipped out from a Pfizer plant in Portage, Michigan on Sunday, headed for over 600 sites all across 50 states. Health officials first began administering the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine last week in the United Kingdom, Following the injections, at least 2 people saw allergic reactions to the vaccine, prompting experts to announce that people with histories of significant allergic reaction should avoid the vaccine. Experts say that the vaccine is given as 2 separate shots administered 21 days apart. Goes on to say that at the time of this reporting, researchers at the Johns Hopkins University estimate that there have been at least 16 million confirmed COVID-19 infections in the United States, with at least coming up on 300,000 fatalities as a result of the deadly virus. Ooh. And so, again, I have to reiterate the point that this is training us to get used to seeing live experimentation. This is training us to, because with big pharma and all this other stuff coming out, like what we covered with Brandy Vaughn and other doctors as well, people are coming out of the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry, exposing it. This is meant to reinvigorate faith in a system that's dying. And again, I've got to ask the question of why are we trusting, pharmaceutical companies on what proper healthcare treatments we should take? They get like doctors literally get a kickback from asking to put kids on vaccine schedules. This is like what I'm about to say isn't related to COVID, but some of these psychiatrists, they look at these people who have body dysmorphia and they want to go through transgender treatments and hormone treatments and things like this. Some of these psychiatrists and these doctors look at these people who want to go through that transition. They look at them as a new yacht or a new car or a new house, because those treatments aren't cheap and they're going to profit off of that treatment. And so that's why you see a boom taking place. The very same thing happens with vaccines and pharmaceuticals. That's like psychotropic drugs or any type of drugs in general. Doctors usually get a kickback. We've done stories on this. This is nothing new. This is also why they're asking for regulatory liability when administering these vaccines, because they know full well that these things are going to harm people. Again, severe adverse vaccine reactions is a real thing. There is a vaccination injury fund, and they are telling you that, hey, we're going to pay you even though this is going to hurt you. So think about this. This is a very, very brand new virus, which we are still learning things about, and they are rushing and skipping trials, asking for regulatory flexibility, knowing full well that it's going to hurt you, and they're going to try to pay you for it. Again, this is desensitizing you to get used to seeing massive experiments, massive deaths, strange things going on. But hey, don't worry, trust the science. There are people smarter than you doing the work. Yeah, just trust the science. And you've got Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam leader, calling the COVID-19 vaccine a toxic waste. I would definitely have to agree. This is an article that comes from Joseph Curl. They put it up over there at Just the News, Not the Noise, on December 15th. And it says, Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan is warning followers not to take a COVID-19 vaccine, calling the immunization against the coronavirus, quote, toxic waste intended to harm the black community. Quote, we are so frightened over this COVID. Now they're getting us ready for this vaccine, Farrakhan said Saturday at a virtual event for the National African Black Leadership Summit. Quote, how could you allow him to stick a needle into you, saying he's helping you? The 87-year-old Farrakhan also said in his 70-minute speech, according to the Daily Caller. Black Americans are skeptical of a COVID-19 vaccine, according to a recent poll. It's not just Black Americans. The entire world is. And again, when you look at Operation Dark Winter, Joe Biden's COVID-19 action plan, that's the idea. They want to get celebrities, influencers, and music stars, people of color too, to help propagandize other blacks to take the vaccine. They want you to take the shot. Free of charge, though. And isn't that what Melinda Gates said? First, we need to get the healthcare workers the shot. Then we need to get the black folks the shot. You got to understand how sketchy this stuff is. Okay? They need those results. Looking back at the COVID-19 task force and the action plan that Joe Biden's doing, they want to create a medical surveillance state so they can lifetime track the people who have received the vaccine. That's why they said the shot itself is administered over a 21-day period. They want to be able to see if you were exhibiting any symptoms. You see, this is a live experiment. You do not have to take it. They want to coerce you. They want to manipulate you. They want to get you with that needle. Understand that we reported on it at the start of this pandemic. They wanted to make it seem patriotic for you to put on your mask. Isn't that one of the talking points you've heard? That you're saving lives by putting on that mask. That was something cleverly crafted by the scientific dictatorship to make you think, or to socially shame you into thinking that you weren't doing your part. And now, after everybody's been indoctrinated successfully with the masks, they're moving forward with the vaccine. But this is why we need significant pushback against it. Let me get back into this article. It says that, quote, Black Americans continue to stand out as less inclined to get vaccinated than other racial and ethnic groups. 42% would do so, compared to the 63% of Hispanic and the 61% of white adults. The Pew Research survey released that last week found, quote, English-speaking Asian Americans are even more likely to say that they would definitely or probably get vaccinated, with 83%. The Trump administration's COVID-19 vaccine czar, Monslav Slawy, addressed skepticism in the Black community, saying, quote, nobody's being used as a guinea pig. Nobody's being used as a guinea pig. We're just rushing this vaccine. We just need you guys to take it. Nobody's being used as a guinea pig, though. We're just going to censor all the information that comes out about the trials, too. Nobody's using you as a guinea pig, says Monslav Slawy. Goes on to say that CNN's State of the Union host, Jake Tapper, recently mentioned the poll, then said, quote, I want you to take a listen to 52-year-old Carmen Bailey from Cleveland, Ohio, before playing a clip. Quote, to me, it's too early. We don't know any of the side effects from them, so I just really feel like at this point, we're people that's going to take the vaccine are guinea pigs, Bailey said. Quote, this kind of skepticism doesn't occur in a vacuum, Tapper said to Slawy. The U.S. has an ugly racist history when it comes to science and medicine and Black Americans. How specifically does Operation Warp Speed intend to address this skepticism, especially the disproportionate skepticism in the Black community? Farrakhan's comments come a day before Pfizer's pharmaceuticals started to ship millions of doses of vaccines to health facilities across the U.S. The first shot was administered to a healthcare worker on Monday. Goes on to say that Sandra Lindsay, a critical care nurse that we just talked about from Queens, New York, who is Black, was the first to get the shot because the face of the country's first coronavirus vaccinations on Monday. Surgeon General Jerome Adams, who was also Black, called for a program aimed at alleviating fears in minority communities about vaccines. Quote, we know that the lack of trust is a major cause for reluctance, especially in communities of color. Adams, who is Black, said at a press conference on Monday, according to The Hill. Yeah, take the shot, Black people. It's going to be cool to get the shot. You've already got, who is it? Charlemagne the God of the Breakfast Club saying, are you going to take the shot or are you going to eat? Because he's seeing the same thing, but he's already propagandizing that to the Black community. That's what they want. They need to get Black people to take the shot. I'll say this and start closing out this segment for you guys. I said it earlier this week on the show. I don't know what it is about trying to get Black people to take the shot. I don't know if we have a stronger immune system, if we have a weaker immune system, or if it's that, they'll get Black people to say, hey, I got my shot, like those 80s commercials, those two Black dudes playing basketball, where he's like, yeah, man, I took the shot. I don't know. I don't know why they're trying to just specifically, get it to Black people. It's kind of creepy. Another article, too, that popped up that's, again, kind of racially oriented is this right here. Cornell University makes the flu vaccination mandatory, but only for white people, for white students. I'm like, whoa, what is this? So you got Melinda Gates talking about vaccination nationalism, but you've got them pandering to Black folks to take the vaccine, and then you've got universities making vaccinations only exclusive for white people. Where are the real social justice warriors? Where are the real racial experts? Because what's happening right now is a multi-tiered medical system where people are essentially having specialized medical treatments for their gender. That's eugenics, that's population control, that's biowarfare, and that's something we should watch out for. So when I say toxic healthcare, look at how they really want to care for you. Look at the evidence that they'll kill you if you do not follow the line, if you don't tote the verified information. I mean, look at what happened to that pharmaceutical representative, Brandy Vaughn. She herself is an information volunteer. She turned her passion into a job trying to wake up people. And instead, they killed her. And they're trying to kill us too. And this is why we have to be armed with the facts, armed with the truth and the information. Because the truth will set you free. And knowledge truly is power. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about inclusive capitalism. How China is infiltrating our government, our businesses, and schools. How 61% of the nations have decimated liberty with these COVID-19 restrictions. And apparently there has been a leak of all the Chinese Communist Party members. Inclusive capitalism coming up in the next segment, because you have a group overseeing $10 trillion called the Guardians of Inclusive Capitalism signing a partnership with the Vatican. You literally have the Vatican creating the one world government, the one world religion, and the one world military. And nobody's batting an eye. We're literally living in prophetic times. The one world currency. And more on the other side. And people can't even tell. We're going to be talking about this and more on the other side, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere. This is Freedom Faction over here on Factions of Freedom. And we'll be right back right after this.
Stephen Crowder and Owen Schroyer, Gavin McGinnis, Proud Boy for Life, God my witness, Mark Levin, Dan Bongino, you do business, Diamond and Silk and Candace Owens, Kanye West standing with you while the flag is blowing. Across the pond to Paul Joseph Watson, homie, you're the bomb like jihadis in Boston. Pun intended, so don't get offended. You snowflakes, safe space, spineless dependents. I'ma work my bloody hands to the bone while you dream about the day that you could get Roger Stone. The deep state, man, your cover is blown. About time that you sent Tommy Robinson home. Top off the jet, you did a lot of things you regret. Bill Clinton flying up in that Lolita Express. Shame on the man with the long tongue. Bad guys, they want you to run from. This land gon' break down the middle. Picking up steam like a Tennessee fiddle. Shame on the police in the blue states. Rocking video games with your roommates. You don't wanna go to war with the right side. We've been looking forward to a fight for a long time. You're not a racist if you voted for Trump. You're not a bigot if you wear a MAGA hat and get jumped. You're not a sexist if your girl makes you breakfast. You're not a privileged white male, just ignore the idiot leftists. This is where my family fought to survive, where they thrive with the immigrants who worked till they died, and they never had a beef with any temple or tribe. This is media controlling your minds.
Together, we will make America strong again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And yes, together, we will make America great again.
Don't tread on me, I won't tread on you. Cut me, I bleed red, white, and blue. Homegrown and down to get dirty. I'm a mean shot with my old 30-30. Brother, we can get it if you cross that line. You can take a look at my American mind.
Fly over, drop him right on top. You know, just
shame on the man with the long tongue. Bad guys, they want you to run from. This land gon' break down the middle. Picking up steam like a Tennessee fiddle. Shame on the bullies in the blue states. Rocking video games with your roommates. You don't wanna go to war with the right side. We've been looking forward to a fight for a long time.
Nobody knows the game better than I do. That's the end of that. You know, it's the only thing you can say.
Proud Boys. And right
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what, somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because
food supplies have been completely wiped out. We have our evacuation of all counties. I report complete devastation. We have a giant squall, cloud, gobbling up everything in their path.
There are forces in this world that remind us of how fragile we are. We thought we were safe. We thought it could never happen to us. Then life like a fog descends upon us, blanketing our memories. Through the haze, we travel its hidden paths, lost in its secret places. And when the storm, turbulent and immovable, forces us to shelter, we remember. It calls to us, calls us back. Back to the ports and the harbors of our past. We fight the currents that pull and drag us off course, not a light or star to chart the way. And when we arrive, we don't always know it at first, the places we once loved guised by time. Then we see it, the place we've been trying to get back to. Safe at last, we've found our way home.
Final segment. You know what's crazy is I am one person and I do the best I can because none of this is easy. But if not us, then who? And we can't wait for everyone else to do the work. You see, this is a huge honor. You know, being in this position, doing this type of work, trying to help the people in the only way I can, man. You know, it's a huge honor being in this position. And what's going to happen is I'm going to take a break for like 2 weeks and just try to be normal, maybe only work one job, not try to be a hero in my local community and not do all this extra celebrity influencer stuff on social media. I'm going to take a break and be like normal and see what that's like, really, really try to be like a weather gauge for what's going on out there, because I have no idea. I'm so caught up in this, and my worldview is so different that that's why we take the breaks, and why we shut down for seasons, because we have to get a different perspective. It's crazy to think about how at the start of this year I was suffering what I thought was from COVID. You guys know I sounded like Darth Vader. My voice was all raspy. Sick brain was taking over. I could hardly finish a sentence. It's just crazy to think that we're coming up on a whole nother year, like in a couple days. And like, I can remember basically month after month, like my 28th birthday, I was literally looking up storable goods, which you guys have heard me promote throughout the entirety of the year. And I'll promote it in this segment as well. If you're not getting storable goods, if you're seeing all this stuff go down and you're not preparing, you need to wake up. You need to stop being paralyzed by all this fear and start making action. And it's just crazy to think about like how month after month things have been intensified and how we've grown in a response to it. And so I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a break and kind of get reoriented. Get a little get resituated, because this is a lot of work, and I'm not complaining. I'm actually extraordinarily proud that we were able to put out 42 plus episodes of hard-hitting, thought-provoking content that's well-researched and authentic in every single way. Oh, excuse me. Because this is the house that we built. Inclusive capitalism. It's global communism. That's why they're rebranding communism. You see. And I'm having to learn all these things on the fly, and it is just a sweet ride, guys. It truly is. That's why it's all I can recommend to you guys. But let's go ahead and start getting into this segment for you guys. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Only 42 episodes worth. Oh man, I'm sorry. I jest too much. But just last week, there was some groundbreaking news that hardly got any attention. China canceled military winter survival training, or Canada canceled their training with China. They had troops on their southern border. Canada did. Chinese troops on their southern border, which was our northern border, and people were freaking out because we are in a trade war with China. They are infiltrating our governments. We have people like Eric Swalwell being like routed out, Mitch McConnell and more, bro. And Canada, run by Justin Trudeau, who's advocating a great reset, is now teaming up with China to do military winter survival training? Whoa. Yeah, no. This raised a lot of alarms for people that were paying attention. Let's get into this article. It comes from Omid Qureshi. They put this up at the Epoch Times on December 10th. It says Canada canceled military winter survival training with Chinese participation after U.S. raised security concerns, documents show. It says that Canada's Defense Department canceled winter survival training with observers from China's People's Liberation Army after security concerns were raised by the United States Canadian government show. The documents, obtained by Rebel News under an Access to Information Act request, show Canada's Department of National Defense relaying that the U.S. military was concerned about China's participation in the exercises, saying that it could, quote, lead to undesired knowledge transfer from Canada to the PLA. Canada's military had sent observers to China during the PLA's winter survival training in February of 2018 and had invited the People's Liberation Army representatives to observe Canada's training at the Petawa military base in Ontario at a future date. Canada's arrest of Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou on December 1st, 2018 on an extradition request from the United States led to China taking a hostile stance against Canada in pursuit of her release. China followed its threats of dire consequences should Canada fail to release Meng by detaining Canadian citizen Michael Korvig and Michael Spaver on December 10, 2018. A January 2019 email by the Department of National Defense officials say that the concern about the winter survival training may have come up on the sidelines of a Five Eyes meeting on the fall of 2018, but added that it was only the United States that was raising security concerns about the engagements. It said that the department had no record of other Five Eyes members raising concerns. An email in the same month by an official with the Foreign Affairs Department notes that there has been a shift in the U.S. stance towards China under the Trump administration, and adds that the reluctance of Canada's Defense Department to engage with the PLA is aligned with Washington's approach. The document, which spans 2019, also shows the Foreign Affairs Department urging the Defense Department not to cancel the engagements with the PLA, saying that if China were to make significant reductions in the military engagements, China will, quote, likely read this as a retaliatory move related to the Ming Wanzhou case. So think about this. We were in a trade war with China. You got all this stuff going on, and Canada's like, hey, you guys want to come over? Do you guys want to come over? We're not doing anything special over here. It's not like, it's not like we're the northern country to your like biggest adversary right now. But you see, that's what it is. That's what happens whenever it's a big club and we're not in it. You see, I typically save my assessments and my thoughts for globalism, the New World Order, the Illuminati, China, Freemasonry, Jews, Zionists, all aliens. I usually reserve this segment of the show for the hard-hitting stuff, because by this time people are able to really digest what I'm kicking, okay? And we have gradually talked about the escalation of China and the infiltration of them in our country, in our politics, in our business, in our culture, and more. They're expanding worldwide, okay? And when I tell you that the globalists and the Illuminati, these people are using China as a hub to expand, it's very real. This is why you have people adopting the social credit score system. I talked about it earlier this week on the Instagram Live. This is why you have them saying that China is the model. We need to work after China, China, China. We need to be like China. China Joe. This is why Joe Biden's like, China needs to be up our keisters. They need to be the ones overseeing things. We just need to step down as a world power and let China do the work. And now, the first of its kind, a list of all the Chinese Communist Party members around the world is set to be released. Now, how massive is that? Let's think about this, because I have a quick clip for you guys. It's rather lengthy, but how massive is that? As this comes out a couple days ago, more information regarding Eric Swalwell, Mitch McConnell, other Communist Party officials have come out. Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, all of it. Because what that really is a hit list saying, yeah, no, here are 2 million disposable people that we'll get rid of. We won't tell you that they directly work for us, but here are their names, here's their places of employment, here's all the information you need. They've done their job. Get rid of them. Kill them off. You see, because traitors are going to be the first ones to go when stuff hits the fan. I was watching a TV show just yesterday, and I'll say this and I'll start getting into, I'll play this quick clip for you guys. I was watching a TV show yesterday, and essentially the scenario was of a scorned wife working with the opposing faction, and the scorned wife literally sells out her entire neighborhood, says, here's the newlywed couple, here's this 70-year-old couple, here's this person that lives by themselves, here's this family of 5, here's these people, these are people that just moved in, I don't know them yet. She gives the whole layout of the neighborhood. And so it was heart-wrenching to see, because the next scene was of the strike forces going into these houses, clearing them out so they could run surveillance on the husband. And so the wife, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, the wife became the friend that was worse than 1 million traitors. And that's where we're at right now. That's why Antifa is so dangerous. That's why BLM is so dangerous. That's why by all any means necessary is dangerous. That's why all this domestic terrorism and information leakage is dangerous, because our adversaries are benefiting from it. And if you don't think they have my information, you're fooling yourselves. If you don't think that they have people watching me to see what I do, I cannot help you. But this is just for the Communist Party. Okay, the people are being out there. They're letting, again, if you ask me, this is that deep state warfare type stuff where they're saying, hey, these people have done their jobs, kill them off, we'll leak this information because we're working with a whole new crop of both infiltrators, agitators, and more, and we're working through a new agenda. Do you want me to play the clips for you of sociologists saying that they are going to crush America? Let me play this clip for you guys, and then we'll continue on.
Tonight, I start with some breaking news that will be front page of The Australian tomorrow and big news in the UK as well. Amid rising tensions in the Australia-China relationship, there has now been a major leak of official records from the Chinese Communist Party. It is believed to be the first leak of its kind in the world. A register with the details of nearly 2 million Communist Party members. It includes their name, party position, birth date, national ID number, ethnicity, and in some cases, even their phone number. What's amazing about this database is not just that it exposes people who are members of the Communist Party and who are now living and working all over the world, from Australia to the US to the UK, but it's amazing because it lifts the lid on how the party operates under President and Chairman Xi Jinping. But this leak shows that party branches are embedded in some of the world's biggest companies and even inside government agencies. That's right, Communist Party branches have been set up inside Western companies, allowing the infiltration of those companies by CCP members who, if called on, are answerable directly to the Communist Party, to the chairman, the president himself. Along with the personal identifying details of 1.95 million Communist Party members, mostly from Shanghai, there are also the details of 79,000 Communist Party branches, many of them inside companies. This leak, and it's going to be front page of The Australian tomorrow and a big story in the UK as well, is a significant security breach that is likely to embarrass the Chinese president. But it's also going to embarrass some global companies who appear to have no plan in place to protect their intellectual property from theft, from economic espionage. The data was extracted from a Shanghai server by Chinese dissidents, whistleblowers, in April 2016, and they've been using it for counterintelligence purposes since then. It was then leaked in mid-September to the newly formed international bipartisan group, the Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China, and that group's made up of 160 legislators around the world. It was then given to an international consortium of 4 media organisations, The Australian, the Sunday Mail in the UK, the Standard in Belgium, and a Swedish editor, to analyse over the past 2 months. And that's what we've done. At The Australian, we then were able to independently get hold of a more complete version of the same database from a confidential source. This allowed leading cybersecurity firm Internet 2.0 to trace the data back to its original leak and then conduct a rigorous metadata analysis and verification. And Robert Potter, who did this analysis, will be on the show in a moment. Now, a spokesperson for the Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China said Luke de Pulford was the person who received the database from a non-governmental source but was not in a position to verify it, so he handed it to experts. He said journalists have since investigated and their findings are disturbing indeed. IPAC will push for governments and companies to respond, setting out how they intend to safeguard their values in the face of infiltration. And that's how they're describing this. Infiltration by Communist Party members by the party in major global companies. Charles Sturt University public ethics academic and specialist on China, Professor Clive Hamilton, said that the intellectual property of Australian companies or any global companies that has CCP employees embedded unbeknownst to them is at high risk of theft. He said that CCP members are obliged to purloin sensitive information if asked by China's intelligence agencies. They have no choice, he says, but if they are party members, it's what they sign up to. The party always comes first. He also points out that Shanghai is the main hub in China for organising spying on nations. He says the Ministry of State Security often uses the Shanghai Academy of Social Sciences to recruit foreign academics. Now, as part of this investigation, 2 Western intelligence agency sources said they would be keenly interested in having access to the data, and we understand that ASIO already has access to this database, although that is not confirmed and ASIO declined to comment. Now, it's worth noting that there is no suggestion that these members have committed espionage, spying, no suggestion at all. The concern is over whether Australia or these companies knew of the CCP members within their employ, and if so, whether any steps have been taken to protect their data, their intellectual property, and their people. Now, this all comes as the US Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, said recently in an opinion piece published in the Wall Street Journal that China is national security threat number 1. He said the intelligence is clear. Beijing intends to dominate the US and the rest of the planet economically, militarily, and technologically.
It's true.
I call its approach of economic espionage rob, replicate, and replace. China robs US companies of their intellectual property, replicates the technology, and then replaces the US firms in the global marketplace. China also uses sensitive US defense technology to fuel President Xi Jinping's aggressive plan to make China the world's foremost military power.
It's true.
US intelligence shows that China has even conducted human testing on members of the People Liberation Army in hope of developing soldiers with biologically enhanced capabilities. Just extraordinary. And it's against this backdrop of such deep concern about the theft of intellectual property, about China's escalating aggression and economic coercion, that this leaked list of Communist Party members has made its way into the public domain. Now, to find out who is on the list, which companies have been exposed, and how the Australian government has been affected, you need to read the Australian newspaper. It'll be online later tonight or in the paper and online tomorrow. Subscribe if you're not already. But tonight, I start with some break of the party in major global countries.
Now think about this. The Communist Party infiltrating all different kinds of aspects of our lives, of our business. All this information is finally coming out. This isn't just some conspiracy. Like they said, there is the party always comes first. The party always comes first. That's why Joe Biden is beholden to them. Eric Swalwell is beholden to them. Mitch McConnell is beholden to them. I would even go as far as saying Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, is beholden to them as well. But think about the implications of this. Longtime listeners, and especially our exclusive members, you guys have seen and heard me rail against China and how not only they treat their people, but how they are, again, positioning themselves as a global power, knocking us off our path. They came out a couple weeks ago and said that, hey, we predict that the U.S. political system will fail. Fail. You had a Chinese sociologist come out saying that China will drive the U.S. to its death. And then a professor coming out claiming that China has a long list of old friends who are at the top of America's inner core circle. We talked about that just last week. It was played on Tucker Carlson's show. We've been infiltrated. We've been taken over. And you've got people selling us out, making a profit. But see, it's not just this. This is a multifaceted approach. That's why we've talked about it throughout the entirety of the year. The hybrid warfare aspect of what these people are doing. You see, what their intentions are as they try to knock us off our podium. You see right here, Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, says that China is infiltrating our government, businesses, and schools. And the only reason we're really talking about this stuff at the end of the year and throughout the entirety of the year is because this does affect us. We were in a proxy war with Russia. Now we're in a trade war with China. And look at what it has brought. They literally laughed in our faces saying that we failed the COVID test. They have bought out our politicians. They have corrupted our media, even more so than it was already corrupted. I mean, you get what I'm saying. Let me read this article and then we'll continue on. It comes from Harbinger's Daily. We put this up December 14th. It says Secretary of State Mike Pompeo told host Alex Marlowe on Monday's edition of SiriusXM's Breitbart News Daily that the Chinese Communist Party is America's primary foreign adversary and warned of China's infiltration of the nation's governments, business, and schools. Marlowe asked about reports of data leaks revealing Chinese state operatives infiltrating multinational corporations, including banks, defense contractors, and pharmaceutical companies. Pompeo replied that, quote, "We've seen this everywhere, and President Trump's been the first president of the United States and, quite frankly, one of the first global leaders to identify this challenge from the Chinese Communist Party." I spoke about this in context of our educational institutions at Georgia Tech last week, where they have infiltrated our schools and they spend money on research projects and so co-opt our institutions that are higher learning and research. They now infiltrate, we've seen this, into our government, into our businesses. President Trump called this out. We've begun to push back against it. There's a lot more work to do, but make no mistake, the Chinese Communist Party presents the single greatest threat to the United States of America of our times. And they're right, because when you have people saying death to America, America was never great, America sucks, America was never going to be great, they're nerfing us. They're putting us in the dirt. You have people selling us out. Again, that scenario that I had laid out for you, the scorned wife, and how one friend is worse than 1,000 traitors, that's what we're dealing with right now. And all these Antifa people who are carrying out these type of domestic terrorist acts, they know what they're doing. When they're destroying buildings, whenever they're lowering morale, whenever they're getting Trump out of office, they know what they're doing. And these people think they're going to be let in. These are traitors. You know, more on that scenario real quick on the scorned wife before I get back into that article. This is how traitors work. They think that they get a position whenever the regime tries to step in, because to a degree we've been occupied. That's some of the information that's going to gradually come out for the end of this year and the next year, that we are a currently occupied country and we have insurgents and insurrectionists here who are trying to overthrow the rule of law. That stuff's going to come out. But see, that's the thing. These traitors think that they're going to be given a position of power during the occupation. So they're more than willing to sell out our country, more than willing to sell out people. But the thing is when that occupation comes, you're an informant, or you're a traitor, or you're going to get a bullet in your head because you sold out your people, and there's no way that you could be an asset to us. You've fulfilled your usefulness, and they will get rid of these Antifas. You see, they'll get rid of these people who have sold out the country because they will have served their part. Let me get back into this and I'll start getting into Eric Swalwell. It says, in September, Pompeo said he was, quote, hopeful that branches of the Confucius Institute, an organization run by the Chinese government, across America's colleges and universities would be closed by the end of 2020. The Trump administration designated the Confucius Institute's programs as foreign missions of the Chinese Communist Party. Ironically enough, speaking of organizations being funded by the Chinese Communist Party, the Black Futures Lab, one of the main organizations helping donate to the Black Lives Matter organizations, is funded by the Chinese Communist Party. So you have Chinese communist ideals being funded through a front company for Black Lives Matter. Okay, so this type of infiltration is everywhere. You got to look at it. You got to look for it. It's there, but they don't want you to know it. Getting back into the article, it says that China is a greater threat than Russia in the realm of hacking attempts targeting governmental and classified information, Pompeo held. Reports last week alleged that a suspected Chinese spy developed extensive ties with local and national Democratic politicians, including House Intelligence Committee member, Representative Eric Swalwell, as part of a years-long political intelligence operation run by China's main civilian spy agency between 2011 and 2015. China is, quote, running influence operations against members of Congress and governors, Pompeo remarked. Quote, this is a determined, long-term, committed effort from General Secretary Xi Jinping, and President Trump has been the first one to say enough and began pushback against it by doing things like closing the Chinese consulate in Houston now a few months back. Marlowe asked about economic integration between the U.S. and China as an impediment to a national security strategy towards a one-party state. Quote, I feel like we are still even just addicted to Chinese products, Marlowe said. We can't help ourselves from buying Chinese goods online. I mean, where do things start in terms of striving back to push on a national level to this infiltration? Pompeo praised President Donald Trump's departure from his predecessors in terms of U.S. foreign policy towards China. Quote, for 50 years, as long as Joe Biden's been in office, Republicans and Democrats alike were asleep while the Chinese Communist Party began to move in. Pompeo said, quote, they moved in through running state-owned enterprises and stealing our intellectual property, denying tens of millions of Americans jobs. They moved into our institutions of higher learning. We've seen the kinds of things they do to break their promises around the world. They told Barack Obama, President Obama, that they wouldn't arm the islands of the South China Sea. They immediately did so. China has a history of lying. China has a history of manipulating things. China has a history of disrupting our country. And it's finally being brought to light, not just economically, but again, culturally and politically. Speaking of politically, right here, the FEC is saying that Eric Swalwell's campaign was funded by Chinese Communist Party employee. And you heard Rand Paul come out earlier and talk about how Eric Swalwell needs to step down from the committee because his ties to the Chinese Communist Party are coming out. And when I talked about it just last week with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, he was excited that Kamala Harris had been on on Senate intelligence committees because that's what it's about. They need that intel. They need that information. That's what the Communist Party does. Again, Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe says that they have the 3 R's: rob, replicate, and replace. That's what they do. And so when you have a jabroni like Swalwell up there being a vestigial stooge, just like Biden, well, heck yeah, he's going to be bought out. Let me read this, and then I'll get into another article about how, because of all this economic devastation wrought by COVID, we have economic things taking place. Shoplifting in the grocery stores on the rise. So as people are selling us out, our civilians, our citizens in our own country can't even have food on the table. This is an article that comes from Nima Harris over there at News Punch. They put this up December 17th. It says a Chinese Communist Party employee made several massive donations to the congressional campaigns of Democratic Representative Eric Swalwell, according to FEC reports. For records, the news comes amid calls for Swalwell to be ejected from Congress over confirmed reports of his relationship with a CCP operative. Last week, Axios published an expose about Chinese national Fang Fang, aka Christine Fang, who is alleged to be a CCP operating on American soil. Fang targeted several politicians between 2011 and 2015, including Swalwell, and he failed. Over the years, the CCP operative helped raise funding for Swalwell, a member of the House Intelligence Committee. Now it has also emerged from the Federal Elections Commission records that between 2014 and 2015, the California congressman accepted a total of $6,000 from Victoria Lee, an employee of Air China, a state-owned Chinese Communist Party-run company. The NationalPost.com reports that the airline has received numerous politically motivated awards from the Chinese Communist Party, boasting the, quote, great example of building team of 4 highlights in national state-owned enterprises on its own website. It says that Air China's leadership has been awarded, quote, great example of building team of 4 highlights and national state-owned enterprises by the organization, Department of the CPC Central Committee and the SAC Party Committee. On September 29, 2008, the party's Central Committee and the State Council held a grand rally at the Great Hall to conclude the Beijing Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games and gave out awards. Air China was honored as the advanced unit in Beijing Olympics and Paralympics. Goes on to say that the Swalwell campaign's willingness to accept thousands of Chinese Communist Party-derived dollars adds to the growing list of congressman ties to China. The revelation follows a Axios report revealing Swalwell's ties to a Chinese intelligence operative, Christine Fang, welcoming her fundraising efforts and personnel choices. The infiltration is real. We have been bought out. You got people selling us out for literally pennies on the yuan. These people don't care about America. They care about themselves. And they've risen to power while putting us down. They have sold us out. And we are just now becoming aware of it. You know, again, that's why these people don't care for these type of sentiments. You know, this is, again, why you could say they're so afraid of Trump, because he helps expose this. Love him or hate him. He's doing the work to get this information out there, and we got to take it the rest of the way. If we let a Communist Party official, or at least a traitor like Eric Swalwell or Joe Biden or Mitch McConnell or any type of people continue to hold office and sell us out, we deserve everything that they're trying to give us. You see? And while you have so-called elected officials selling out the country, you have shoplifting in grocery stores on the rise in the United States. This is an article that comes from Max Lavo over there at SHTF Plan. They put this up December 15th. And you know what I'm going to read. The food banks are being overrun. The people are running out of food. The military families are now running out of food. How long until even greater thefts take place? You know, I was reading an article from KRQE News. This is a local news outlet that they were saying that they had stopped a bank robbery here in New Mexico. Well, they didn't really stop it. You know, the kid was unable to pull off the bank robbery, and we haven't had a bank robbery in quite some time. But the fact is people are feeling that economic squeeze. They're unable to provide for their families. Food insecurity is going to be one of the major things going forward into the year. So if you don't have storable goods, here's the plug, go get it. Over 50 million Americans are expected to be food insecure by the end of 2020, and this is a result of it right here. We've talked about how truckers have been held up and robbed because of COVID, because you got people in most of these cities who are literally like where they have the whole defund the police movements. People who are truckers are refusing to go to some of those areas because they were experiencing robbings in those cities and in those states. And so you've got, again, the supply line being disrupted. This is a cause of it. Throughout the entirety of this year, we have talked about how people are not going to have food and what those implications are. Let me read this article and then we'll continue on. It says, as businesses and families struggle to get by in the aftermath of the government's massive overreaction to the coronavirus scamdemic hoax, shoplifting in grocery stores has been spiking. This is a case where people are stealing food, not overpriced luxury goods. America is well on its way to becoming a third world country thanks to people's continual obedience to the state's disastrous orders. As of right now, the statistics are bad, but they are expected to get a whole lot worse as the entire economy collapses in a heap. More than 20 million Americans currently on some form of unemployment assistance, and some 54 million Americans are projected to struggle with hunger this year. This is an increase of 45% the year prior, as noted by the USDA. And according to the Washington Post, more Americans are shoplifting for basic necessities at the grocery store more than ever before. More than 20 million Americans are currently on some form of unemployment assistance. As income disappears and families begin to experience hunger, the prevalence of shoplifting heightens, says a new report. Quote, we're seeing an increase in low-impact crimes. Jeff Zisner, chief executive of workplace security firm Aegis, told the Washington Post, quote, it's not a whole lot of people going in, grabbing TVs and running out of the front door. It's a very different type of crime. It's people stealing consumables and items associated with children and babies. The Census Bureau also told the Washington Post that nearly 26 million adults reported not having enough food to eat as of mid-November, a record high. Resources for food assistance programs are becoming sparse for those in need as well, which is another reason why Americans are turning to shoplifting. Meal shortages are on the horizon at major food banks across the country too, as federal funding is set to expire at the end of the month. In addition, food aid programs such as SNAP and WIC are being reduced. It won't take many more restrictions or lockdown rules to plunge what used to be the world's most abundant economy into a massive crash that we've never seen before. Get prepared now, if you aren't already. I'll put the link for the storable goods in the description bar below so you can go ahead and get yourself some. You're not alone when experiencing these type of things. But you've got to ask the question, again, why does it feel like we're drifting towards Venezuela with the military taking over the elections, food shortages, robberies? You know, what happened? Were we really a third world nation masquerading ourselves as a first world nation? What happened? And it's crazy, again, that people can't see that the masks are the things ruining the economy. As we played for you guys earlier in the previous segment and earlier in the show, the restaurants are trying to open, but they are strangling the life out of these businesses. This is what happens when you let politics debate business, or when you let ethics run money. You're taking people's livelihoods away. You're telling them, go home, wait it out. We'll contact you at the end of the year when we have a vaccine ready. This was so strategically done to rob people of like their rights and their bank accounts. It's crazy. To just break people down. It's astonishing. It's nuts. It's like, hey, you have to stay home. You're not allowed to work. You're not allowed to go outside, but everything will be okay. Okay? Don't freak out. Why are you freaking out? Wow, look at this guy. He wants to work. He doesn't want to put on a mask. How dare he? And now, because of the Great Reset, 61% of nations have decimated liberty with these COVID-19 restrictions. You already know it. Yeah, that's why people are stealing. There was an article that came out earlier this week. I didn't get around to posting it, but in Seattle, they're making it like a misdemeanor for theft, saying that if you are poverty-stricken and you steal things, you're going to get a free slide. Because, again, they understand what they're doing. This is a part of that socio-cultural political shift that's taking place, the socioeconomic devastation that COVID has wrought, and how society is adapting. Let me read this article. It comes from Steve Watson over there at Planet Free Will. They put this up December 16th. It says, an international human rights group has warned that the majority of nations across the globe have implemented COVID-19 related restrictions that have severely eroded the liberties of their citizens. Now, I won't read this in its entirety. I literally just want to have this up here for the record's sake, because this is what I was warning of at the start of this pandemic. I hoped that we would still have our personal liberties intact, but I knew deep down that the pandemic would rob us of it, that we don't have human rights, that Joy Behar and Hillary Clinton call anti-lockdown protesters domestic terrorists. People that just want to go to work are considered terrorists. While in China, you have sociologists saying, well, if we just go to work every single day, if we eat, sleep, urinate, and defecate every day, we will drive the U.S. to its death. Because that's the plan right now. You see, that's the trade war. That's the evolution of warfare. That's that financial warfare, where they're able to break you down, rob you of your nest egg, rob you of the ability to pull yourself out from poverty and make something of yourself. Restricting your liberties and restricting your rights. Goes on to say that the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, IDEA, based in Sweden, reports that 61% of countries have used restrictions that were concerning from a democracy and a human rights perspective. Quote, these restrictions violated democratic standards because they were either disproportionate, illegal, indefinite, or unnecessary in relation to the health threat, the group declared in its report. Even more concerning was the finding that almost half of all democratic countries implemented measures that violate basic human rights. The group has warned that the most at risk from the restrictions is freedom of expression. IDEA also noted that half of all countries have used COVID to implement restrictions in the name of preventing disinformation about the virus. The group also warned that almost 60% of nations have implemented states of emergency, severely restricting freedom of movement, many of which are still in place. IDEA is not alone in its warning of the decimation of freedom. Yeah, because we can see it happening. We can see our future and everything being taken from us. Robbed. Left and right. And they don't think damage is going to happen. Right here, economic carnage. Medical tyranny has sent 8 million Americans into poverty since the summer of 2020. This comes from Heather Long via Greenwich Time, but they reposted it over their Technocracy News. They put this up December 16th. And think about this. Again, you know what I'm going to read. You know what this is. Jobs are being permanently destroyed as up to 40% of small businesses are shuttered forever. They are killing us. They're killing the economy. Masks are killing the economy. Social distancing is killing the economy. 25% occupancy rate. 50% occupancy rate. It's killing the country. It's killing the economy. That's a part of the Great Reset. They want to break us down. I've said this before. That's what Trump's whole presidency was about. Obama put us into a second world status, took us from a first world nation to a second world status. Trump's presidency was designed to bring us back up to a first world status, only for us to level back out at a second world status. And this is it. This is it. When they are destroying the middle class, saying that we are your only salvation, that they embolden government and make it that much stronger. We're not a first world. We don't have freedoms. They're being trampled on. So yeah, this is putting people into poverty, destroying savings. Again, removing the ability for you to work in not necessarily in a safe environment, but at a consistent space and a consistent pace too. That's why they want you to work from home, so they can expand the surveillance state and the technocracy, all this stuff. Let me read this, because again, this is a part of inclusive capitalism, destroying everybody's ability and their thought process towards capitalism, only for them to rebrand communism as inclusive capitalism and try to get everybody on board. Let me read this so we can keep going through some of these topics, through some of these articles. It says that the U.S. poverty rate has surged over the past 5 months, with 7.8 million Americans falling into poverty, the latest indication of how deeply many are struggling after the government aid dwindled. The poverty rate jumped to 11.7% in November, up 2.4 percentage points since June, according to the new data released Wednesday by researchers at the University of Chicago and the University of Notre Dame. While overall poverty levels are low by historical standards, the increase in poverty this year has been swift. It is the biggest jump in a single year since the government began tracking poverty 60 years ago. It is nearly double the next largest rise, which occurred in 1979 through 1980 during the oil crisis, according to James X. Sullivan, James X. Sullivan, a professor at Notre Dame, and Bruce D. Meyer, a professor at the University of Chicago's Harris School of Public Policy, said this. Sullivan and Meyer created a COVID-19 income and poverty dashboard to track how many Americans are falling below the poverty line during this deep recession. The federal poverty line is $26,000 for a family of four. The economists say that the sharp rise in poverty is occurring for two reasons. Millions of people cannot find jobs, and government aid for the unemployed has declined sharply since the summer. The average unemployment payment was more than $900 a week from late March to the end of July, but it fell to about $300 a week in August, making it harder for the unemployed to pay their bills. Quote, "We've seen a continual rise in poverty every month since June," Sullivan said. Congress is debating whether to pass additional stimulus. Many economists and business leaders say more aid is needed as the economic recovery stalls and many families and small businesses struggle to stay afloat. Quote, "There are two ways to counteract this upward trend in poverty. One is a dramatic improvement in the labor market. The other is more support from the federal government. Given the state of the virus, I wouldn't bet on the significant improvement in the labor market in the short run," Sullivan said. That part is even if they told people to go back to work, a lot of people really wouldn't go back to work because they would try to milk the government handing out handouts. They would say, "Oh, well, I don't feel safe here," or "Oh, I don't want that." And that would upset things. It would be as simple as rolling back some of these restrictions, but the psychological damage of these restrictions has been done to where people are domesticated and they want handouts. Just like that. Just like that. But see, people aren't putting two and two together, and if they are, they don't really care. That's the other part. They don't really care. And so here we are at the end of the year, we're all basically getting poor. But we're being told, hey, just put your mask on. Just put your mask on. Completely unaware that the COVID-19 pandemic is driving the economic devastation. I have a quick clip for you guys right quick. It's how the pandemic is driving up homelessness in New York. Yeah, because the cost of living is going up. People are unable to pay their bills. You're not letting them work. There's no assistance. This is atrocious.
Milestone when it comes to homeless people in this city. The new report from Homeless Advocates says COVID has helped to propel the shelter population to record numbers. CBS 2's Andrea Grimes has this.
Homeless advocates call these numbers astronomical. They say for the first time, the number of single adults sleeping in city Department of Homeless Services shelters reached more than 20,000. That includes an all-time record of 15,369 single men and a near record of 4,841 single women in October, the latest statistics available. All of this according to the Campaign for New York Housing, coalition of advocacy groups.
This dire homelessness crisis among single adults has been exacerbated by COVID-19, which has already forced more individuals into homelessness and will likely worsen in the coming months.
Advocates point out these high numbers do not include those sleeping on the streets or in private shelters. They say not only is COVID to blame, but multiple economic and policy failings, including a lack of supportive housing, which is affordable housing with support services. Mayor de Blasio says even during the pandemic, massive outreach has continued to get the homeless off the streets and into shelters and help.
They need mental health services. They need substance misuse services. Obviously, everyone ultimately needs affordable housing or supportive housing.
The campaign is calling on Governor Cuomo to fulfill a commitment he made in 2016 to build 20,000 supportive housing units across the state. To date, 6,000 have been funded.
Homelessness is expensive. Without stable housing, very vulnerable people cycle in and out of shelters, prisons, jails, and state psychiatric centers. Study after study shows that supportive housing actually saves the state money.
A spokesman with the State Division of the Budget says the Cuomo administration continues to fund a $20 billion homelessness and housing plan. He says they've already exceeded their goal of 6,000 homes and are on their way to achieving their goal of 20,000 supportive homes over 15 years. On the Upper West Side, Andrea Grimes, CBS 2 News.
Thanks, Andrea.
Milestone.
Thanks, Andrea, for bringing us up to date about the homeless epidemic that is spiraling out of control simply because of dictatorial governors thinking they can pay people's rents. You know, think about that real quick before I play this next and final clip for you guys. Supportive housing units. What did I just talk about? We played that clip for you guys of Nick the Greek talking about asking these health inspectors, are you going to pay my rent? That's what they want to do. They want to make you homeless so they can put you in these FEMA camps, in these fusion centers, in these supportive housing units, these coffin apartments, whatever they're going to be, so they can control your rent, so they can control your movement. You see, they don't want people to be free-thinking individuals that can work for themselves, that can think for themselves, that can educate themselves. No, 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 no. You see, you can't let the slaves read. You can't let the slaves work. You can't let the slaves do anything. You just got to let them do what slaves do, be shuffled from objective to objective. They want to make you homeless. They don't want an empowered population. This is communism. This is socialism, if you ask me. This is communism and socialism writ large, and we're experiencing it too underneath the Trump administration. We don't have to wait for Biden to get in. We're experiencing it now. And speaking of now, you now have a group overseeing $10 trillion called the, quote, Guardians for Inclusive Capitalism, where they have signed an exclusive deal with the Vatican. Now think about this, because I'm going to play this quick clip for you guys, and then we're going to close out this segment. Think about this. They're telling you, hey, look, we're going to take control of things now. We are taking control. This comes off of the heels of the Great Reset. This comes off of the heels of Klaus Schwab, of them all saying, hey, look, COVID-19 has provided for us a great opportunity to not only seize control, but consolidate power. And here it is right here, inclusive capitalism. It's almost as inclusive as the LGBTQ mafia. Think about this. Let me read this article. It comes from Zero Hedge. They put this up December 10th. It says, today, in news that's going to give conspiracy theories a full strokes, it was announced this week that a, quote, historic new partnership between the Vatican and some of the world's largest investment and business leaders called the Council for Inclusive Capitalism has officially launched. And oh, did we mention it is being helped along by a member of the Rothschild family, Lynn Forrester de Rothschild? The, quote, council says its formation, quote, signifies the urgency of joining moral and market imperatives to reform capitalism into a powerful force for the good of humanity, according to a release published Tuesday. What they're talking about right here, if you caught that, was Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, Sustainable Development, and again, part of their SDGs, inclusive capitalism, rebranding global communism to where people think, hey, look, I can still have my own business, but it's got to be like this. Or I can still do things, but it still has to be within these lines. Getting back into this, it says, quote, under the moral guidance of the Pope, it says, quote, it invites companies of all sizes to harness the potential of the private sector to build a fairer, more inclusive, and sustainable economic foundation for the world. And get this, the council is led by a, quote, core group of global leaders called the Guardians for Inclusive Capitalism. We swear we didn't steal this narrative from a Marvel movie. So go back a couple weeks and hear me talk about the Creo Syndicate, a group of ultra-rich, wealthy families coming together to help advance green technologies and a green economy, essentially pushing Agenda 2030 for sustainable development. So not only do you have the Creo Syndicate, but you also have the Guardians for Inclusive Capitalism. Do you see how they position themselves as if they are the advocates for humanity? They are the heroes that will save us from this crisis. As if we are incapable of thinking and doing for ourselves, we need the guardians to take care of us. Getting back into the article, it says that this group, who you have likely never heard of until today, apparently, quote, meet annually with Pope Francis and Cardinal Turkson and represents, quote, more than 10.5 trillion in assets under management, companies with over 2.2 trillion of market capitalization and 200 million workers in over 163 countries. Pope Francis said in the council's press release, quote, an economic system that is fair, trustworthy, and capable of addressing the most profound challenges facing humanity and our planet is urgently needed. You have taken up the challenge by seeking ways to make capitalism become a more inclusive instrument for integral human well-being. And by linking what appears to be the most powerful people on earth overseeing an ungodly amount of money to the Vatican, can we get an amen? And so I'll say this and play this. When I'm always telling you guys that you need to vote with your dollars, vote with your lifestyle, become a counter-economist and a conscious entrepreneur, this is them taking that ideology and turning it into Guardians for Inclusive Capitalism. They understand that time is money, and if we can use our money to make the work for us and export these ideologies using money, those are the real bullets. That's how you really make progress. They're saying, no, we see that is a great idea. We're going to get a bunch of rich people together, and we're going to tell you what narratives are going out there. They're going to try to sell you free energy on the guise of the well-being for humanity. You're going to start seeing all kinds of people coming out as if they are heroes for society, advocating for the development of Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030. Let's take a listen, and then I'll begin to close this segment out for you guys. Pope Francis has challenged global businesses to build a more inclusive world.
Un sistema economico giusto.
It says an economic system that is fair and trustworthy and capable of addressing the most profound challenges facing humanity and our planet is urgently needed.
We are answering Pope Francis's challenge to create more inclusive economies that spread the benefit of capitalism more equitably and allow individuals to realize their full potential.
Capitalism has lifted billions out of poverty.
The majority of people around the world say that they think their families will be worse off in 5 years. That's a scenario that we simply can't accept.
Too much wealth has accreted to too few people.
If you make money, what's the point if you're not prepared to share it? If the people who help make that wealth for you can't live with dignity?
It's inclusive capitalism, though, and we have to recognize that starting from where we are to where we need to get to, we need to bring everyone along, and there will be adjustments that come with that.
We do need the private sector's ingenuity, capital, technology, people, everything, their passion to come to the party.
We want to operate in a sustainable way, where incentives are aligned across generations, not just across quarters, and the main actors take a long-term perspective.
Aligning our innovation with the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the priorities of inclusive capitalism is both a business and sustainability imperative.
Two reasons, I think, why I'd say concrete commitments to inclusive capitalism matter. I mean, the first, and not to be underestimated, really important, is they can inspire other people. And the second thing that I would say around concrete public commitments is they can help build trust.
Leaders in the business community can be a unifying force. They can be a source of opportunity. They can be a source of understanding. So we as business leaders can step up and solve many of these economic problems.
I think business plays a very important role in resolving these challenges. I think businesses have to become, part of the solution through leadership by example and through leadership by incentives.
I got to stop it right
We
here.
are stewards of this earth.
I got to stop it right there as Lynn Forrester de Rothschild pops up. Because we're talking about fascism, we're talking about wealth redistribution, we're talking about corporatism, we're talking about the corporation wars. This is what happens whenever governments have failed us and corporations step forward to lead the way. This is it. Make no mistake, this is it. They're making it seem like it's a good thing. Governments have failed you. Let businesses, people that have accrued incalculable amounts of wealth and influence, let them dictate to you how the world is going to move forward. I can't help but think of that when I see this propaganda. Guardians for inclusive capitalism. What they're talking about is wealth redistribution. This is the socioeconomic reformation. That's the great reset. Make no mistake about it, that's what you just heard right there. This is what they have planned for us. This is how they are setting the stage for Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030. Everything that COVID-19 did paved the way for what you just heard and what we're about to go through. But I'll make no mistake of this, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be going through that together. And we're going to have to figure out the solution ourselves. And this is the current configuration. A lot of people are having to change. And until we understand the necessity of change and what we can do with it, we'll always be somebody else's slave. So we can see these people doing these things, or we can also become our own selves, counter-economists, conscious entrepreneurs, and things like this as well. We have to look at how these people are propagandizing us and ask again the question of what morals, what values, what standards and expectations are we going to bring forth into this new world order? Or are we just going to be subjected to the reign of the guardians of inclusive capitalism? And just like that, the new world order has begun to reveal its face as if they are our friends. And it takes discernment to know what's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dystopian Daze, Toxic Healthcare, and Inclusive Capitalism. This episode was like 3 hours long to give you that deep, comprehensive breakdown as to what's happening. That, and you're not going to see me for a while. I figured I'd give you something to think about in the meantime. All the links to the videos and the documents that I went throughout the entirety of this transmission will be in the episode article in the description bar below if you guys want to go read these things for yourself. However, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I really have for you guys and gals. The world as we know it is drastically changing, and we can cry over spilt milk, or we can clean up the mess and have ourselves a fresh cup of orange juice. That's how I see things. We can't cry over these things, we have to improve, because that's what the future wants, the best of us, to put our best foot forward. But however, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I really have for you guys and gals. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, I'll have it in the description bar below. And as always, guys and gals, stay vigilant, expose lies and share truth. This is Noise Era, Freedom Faction, out. Be safe out there.